was the first thing that happened on the live, like right as I started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Kyle's Corner. Today, I'm joined by my very good friend Sarah, who I've been trying to get on for a while, but she keeps disappearing from BookTube on us. So I'm happy to finally have coaxed her back. Sarah, it's always wonderful to talk to you. Do you want to introduce yourself and what you do and where you've been and all that stuff?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Sarah. I don't do BookTube right now. I'm trying really hard. Actually, my daughter looked at my channel a couple of days ago and was like, "Mom, the last time you made a video was in February. You're so behind." I was like, "Number one, thank you, Juliet, for being there to judge me. That's excellent." But I am hoping to get back to it. When I did make BookTube videos, they were mostly fantasy oriented, but I do read a wide variety of things. I like coming on and chatting, and I am glad to be here.
Yeah, you read like a pretty wide variety. Like you do read a lot
Mhm.
of fantasy, but you also like I feel like most genres I've seen you tackle at least a little bit in, and you always have like interesting things to say about them. So,
Excellent. Thank you. Hopefully, I can be adequately interesting today.
well, we'll see. I mean, I can only be nice to you in bursts of like 30 seconds, and
That's
then I'm
true.
mean for a really long time. So, like, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, this is just like a trend because I also don't booktube very often. So all the people that I know are from when I used to booktube, and all those people have taken hiatuses. So I always bring on people that like just don't really do this anymore, but that's fine. I really just want to, hang out with people. And we have Ivan here, we have Rajul, we have Helgi, we have Rogue, we have Kevin. We got some of the crew here.
There we go.
Uh, so Sarah, tell me, what are you reading right now, and why is it page 12 of Dragonfly Falling?
It's actually not page 12. I'm at like page 112, but
Oh
we've
my
been
God,
doing
really?
this.
Are you serious? I thought for sure you were gonna tell me you finished. I thought for sure. Do
I
you know
know.
where I am in this book? I
Where are
am
you?
253 pages into this book
Well, you know
that I
what?
have
That
not
actually makes me
that
feel better.
that I have not picked up since June, waiting for you.
It makes me feel better
So for
because
anybody who knows, Sarah and I were gonna buddy read this, and I want to say June, and then we couldn't. Whatever month we were first gonna buddy read it in, we were both busy, so then we pushed it back
Mhm.
1 month, and then we were gonna start it, and then I'm 250 pages in waiting for her, and it's been like 3 months. So
I know I'm a cursed buddy reader. Ask Alan, ask Colton, ask anybody. Like if I
you
reread a
buddy
book
read
with
with other
you,
people. You don't buddy
I
read with
don't.
me. Yeah,
No, it's a problem across the board. It's not Kyle specific.
I don't know how that's true, but you have been reading. Like you mentioned some books that you read when you were on vacation. What were they again?
Yeah, so the most recent book that I finished is called Never Whistle at Night, which is a collection of dark fiction by Indigenous authors. So I think the horror author that Evie really likes, he edited it
Stephen
and brought it
Graham
all together.
Jones.
Yeah, he did like the introduction, and so he wrote an introduction for it, and then there's a bunch of different authors, and it was really good. Like all short story collections, there were high points and low points, but I think consistently the stories were solid. There was only one where I felt like it was incomprehensible. And I don't know if Evie, I think Evie did read it. I don't know if Evie would agree with this. There was one short story, I don't remember what it was called, but I just felt like the author opened a thesaurus and pointed at random words. It was like, I'm going to put words in this story that no one's ever heard in their entire life and then try to string it together as if it is a short story. I couldn't tell you what it was about, any sort of plot. I just know that there were many words that I had never heard before in my life when I was reading through, but most of them were really good. It was excellent and
There was just the
very
one.
creepy, and yeah, it was just the one.
Yeah, I need to read more Indigenous horror. I feel like it's my wife really likes it, and
Mm-hmm.
so we have a bunch of them. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's actually like a pretty robust like subgenre of literature, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've read any. But Elliott just wrote a book that I want to read. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it's like "And All the Bodies on the Ground" or something like that.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah, my wife really liked it.
No
And then
bullying, Jake.
she
This
fell.
is a
That's what she's
non-bullying
called.
stream.
It's called "And
I
Then
did.
She Fell."
Oh, okay, nice. I did read Bad Cree this year as well, which is another Indigenous
Yes, that's
horror,
another
and that's
one
really
that
good.
we have. Yeah, yeah, it is good. Nice. Um, yeah, I feel like as a Canadian, like more around us than maybe it
Mm-hmm.
is for other people. Um, but yeah. Also, did you call it a Did you call it a collection? Is that why Evie got mad at you for not calling it
I
an
did.
anthology?
I did.
Oh
It's an
no,
anthology.
Evie's coming for you. She's coming
I'm
for you.
sorry. It is an anthology. It's many authors, not a collection from one author. Jeek, I just said this is a non-bullying stream. This is actually, you have to be very nice to me because I've been gone for such a long time. I can't handle meanness.
Yeah, she's so fragile right now.
Mhm.
What is going on with you in Ship of Destiny? Like, I don't understand. Now, I can't talk, so I don't know how much you've been following my Hob journey, but I have been not reading Fool's Fate for 9 months now. So
Right, it's just what happens. I think this is a problem with me in general with things that I really like. I don't want them to stop. So it takes me a really long time. Like there's no in between. Either I binge it in like a day or I just don't get to it. And I don't know what it is, what kind of mental block it is, but it happens with everything. TV shows, whatever I'm doing. You know, look at
yeah, I
everybody
mean,
being
like,
mean.
we're just all excited to see you, Sarah.
That's true.
This is true. This is my brand, bullying,
Mhm.
for sure, 100%. I think part of it for me is that I liked Fool's Errand and Golden Fool so much that I'm like, oh no, Fool's Fate is one of the ones that people say it's just like devastating, and I already thought Fool's
Mhm.
Errand was pretty devastating. And then I have Rain
Emotionally
Wilds, which nobody likes besides Evie. And like, do I trust Evie? Like, I don't think that I do. So then, therefore, it's just like me gonna suffer for 4 books after that. So I've just been really putting off Fool's Fate, but I really, really now Robin Hobb is coming to Dragonsteel, and I
Oh,
think,
really?
yeah. So her and Fonda Lee are both coming to Dragonsteel. So I have to like, I mean, I already read all Fonda Lee's stuff, but I have to like read. I feel like so I have this hardcover of Assassin's Fate up
Mhm.
here, and I want Robin Hobb to sign my favorite Realm of the Elderlings book, which right now is Ship of Magic. But I'm like, I don't want to get
Mhm.
her to sign Ship of Magic, and then I read Assassin's Fate, and I'm like, this one's the best one. So like, I have to finish before December.
That's true.
So
Where is the
we'll
con
see.
located?
It is in Salt Lake City.
Right. Is it always in Salt Lake City?
Yes, that's
Oh,
where
okay.
Sanderson lives.
That's where Brandon Sanderson is.
Yeah, that's his. That's
You
his
come to
more.
him. He does not
That's
come to you.
that's where his Mormon lair is. So
That theme park is actually just his house. You just go there.
well, there's a theme park in Salt Lake City that just like it was like a fantasy one, and it shut down, and people were buying it, and there was a lot of rumors that it was going to be Brandon Sanderson, um, because he announced that he's doing like a village or whatever for Dragonsteel, and his property is not very far from that property, so
Mhm.
people were like, oh, maybe he's like buying this fantasy like village thing. And
Can you
then they
imagine?
had to come out and be like, no, like we're not buying that. It's not Brandon.
Sorry.
And I was like, oh.
It's not us. That would have been cool though.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want that level. Like, I just want, like, I'm happy for his success and all that, but I want books. Like, I'm just like he's doing this like Cosmere RPG, and I'm like, it would be great, more books. But
Yes, because he's so it takes him so long to get books out. He's so
I'm
underwritten. If
I'm
there's any
greedy,
author you should
Sarah. I'm
demand more
greedy.
from, it's Brandon Sanderson.
He needs to get on that George R. R. Martin level.
There we go.
No, but it's gonna be awesome. Jake's gonna go, Bookborn's going, Pete's going. So there's gonna be like a nice little gathering of us. Ben from BengusCon.
Nice, a gaggle of booktubers. I'm really sad. There was a convention in Ireland, and Patrick got invited to go, and I was so sad because it was the week that my kids were at camp, and I was like, you know what? If he's flying all the way from Indonesia to Ireland, I would totally go to
Sarah,
Ireland. But
that's
I could not
that's
go.
Worldcon, and next year it's in Seattle, and you should come.
Yeah, but I mean, Patrick's not going to be there.
Yes, he is. Well, okay, not confirmed, but I asked him. He said that he's trying to be there.
Oh, he's trying to go. Oh, excellent. Not that I don't want to see everybody else, but I feel like
yeah,
I could
it's just
conceivably
Patrick.
visit other people. I don't know when I'm going to be able to take a trip or a train or a plane to Indonesia.
I asked Patrick if he was going to be going, and he says he has to work out whether or not he can get like a travel visa for the U.S. But if he does, he wants to go.
Cool.
I mean, it's in a year, so things can change. But I'm just saying, I did ask him because I was curious because he went to Ireland. I'm like, if Seattle is not much further than Ireland, I would imagine, in the grand scheme of coming from Indonesia. So I do. I do want another pandemic, but only because I want George R. R. Martin to actually work on Winds of Winter.
Oh, there we
And
go. Glasgow, Scotland.
yeah.
Sorry. I promise I do know that Glasgow is in Scotland. I just thought for some reason that it was Ireland. I'm sorry, Rogue. I do know geography.
Oh no. You
No,
go.
Evie, why would you break this live? This should have come in a message where I could react to it appropriately. That's so sad. Oh no.
Were you guys gonna do a
Well,
meetup?
Anita and I are just gonna have to have a lot of fun and take a lot of pictures and send them to you to make you feel bad. So
Oh, is this the Taylor Swift?
yes, yeah.
Oh man, I wish that we had bought tickets to that because my wife wanted to go, and I feel like it would be good, and then I would be able to meet up with people. But
That's true. You could just come to Toronto.
I could come to Toronto, but I'm going to Utah. So I chose my battles, and it was really popular Brandon Sanderson over really popular Taylor Swift. Like I chose what fandom I was a part of.
You chose poorly.
I don't know. Sanderson has Sanderlanches and stuff.
That's true.
Did you follow any of the House of the Dragon season 2 stuff? Like you haven't watched it yet, or did you?
Mm-mm. No,
Did
I
you watch
did not
season
watch
1?
it. No.
Really? Why not? Just not interested?
I don't watch a lot of TV, so it would take a lot for me to watch something. I did hear that from you and other people that it was good. But no, it takes a lot for me to watch a TV show, to be honest. I do watch anime sometimes, but I may watch it at some point in the future. Maybe.
I would wait until season 3. Like I like season 2 a lot. But some of the criticisms were valid, which is that like so in season 2 they wrote 10 episodes, and then HBO was doing a merger, like Time Warner was doing a merger, so then they came back and they were like, can you do 8 episodes? So they just got cut off the last 2. And then the writer's strike happened, so then they couldn't change anything from the scripts. And so the season 2 just ends, and the pacing is not good in season 2. Like I still think the show's really good, but a lot of people had problems with the pacing. So I would wait until season 3. And anyway, the reason that this popped up is because George R. Martin and the showrunners or HBO or someone are clearly having stress, like conflict. And he said like yesterday or the day before that he's going to write a post about all that went wrong with House of the Dragon. Right. So we're all waiting for him to be a petty bitch, as some would say. This is true. If you're going to watch one show, watch Shogun. That show is excellent.
And I did. So I have, because we do have Disney Plus, the kids use it mostly to watch stuff. So I have seen Shogun pop up a bunch of times. And I have thought to myself, if I was going to watch a show, it would be that one. I'm trying to think of what the last show I watched. It might have actually been the last non-animated show. I honestly don't remember.
This is elitist of you to not consider an animated show a show.
No, like, I do consider it a show.
If I'm watching like BoJack Horseman and somebody's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not really watching anything, but I'm watching BoJack." Like, no, I'm watching BoJack Horseman.
No, they're usually shorter. That's all. They're like 20.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, for sure.
Instead of like hour, or even like now, I feel like TV shows are like an hour and 15 minutes. It's not even like they're 50 minutes anymore. They're super long. I classify this as bullying too, because this is another series that I just haven't. This is just going to be your live stream of being like, Sarah, so have you read this book yet? And me saying, no. I haven't. I haven't read a City Watch book either. I'm still at the second City Watch Minotaur.
Yeah, I did a poll, and I was supposed to read like Wise Man's Fear and Men at Arms tied. So I was like, I'll read both of them in July, and I just read half of Wise Man's Fear in July,
which is the first time for you, right?
Yeah.
Do you like it?
I do like it, but I haven't hit the parts that people don't like.
Okay.
And the thing about Kingkiller that I feel is that when I'm reading it, I find it all very interesting.
Yeah.
And then I put it down, and I'm super fine with putting it down. Like the spell is over. I think it's because the way Rothfuss writes, I just find very, very good.
Brings you in.
Yeah, so I'm just like totally in, but I don't like actually find the story that like if you're like, oh, why do I like it? I'm like, well, like the things going on in that town are cool. Like I don't really care, but while I'm reading it, I feel like I care. And then I put the book down, and then I have other books to read, and I'm like, I haven't picked up Wise Man's Fear in like a week, but I really like it when I'm reading it. So and that's the same way I felt about Name of the Wind too. So
I have not reread them since I read them for the first time, and I read the Name of the Wind, I think a couple of years before Wise Man's Fear came out. Like it wasn't when it was first released, but I definitely had to wait a year or two for Wise Man's Fear. And then obviously I was super excited. I read it all like basically in one sitting. I made Andrew bring me meals as I was like sitting in bed reading it, and I really loved it. But obviously it had been out for 2 days. There was not enough time for anybody to be like, this sucks. So I was not influenced by any.
So you read it like that when it came out, and you have not reread it?
No.
Interesting.
Mostly because I don't want to be sad that there's no third book, and I feel like if I don't reread it, then I will not remember the immediacy of wanting answers to things.
Yeah, I mean that's valid. I did my A Song of Ice and Fire reread last year, and I mean, look, I'm always going to reread those books. I always know going into them that I don't have a sixth book.
That's
but
not finished.
The time in which I'm the most sad is when I reach the end of Feast for Crows, and I'm like, man, it has been 19 years since we've gotten a Sam Tarley chapter, and it's just like every time I'm like that meme of that like ghost face. Every single time I realize that, I'm like 19 years. I'm like the gap between Sam chapters can vote. Like that's insane.
No. That's so funny.
That's so like, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I don't know.
It is sad. I have not read past Feast for Crows either because I just feel like I'm also.
What is your opinion on Feast for Crows? Like, I know it's been a while, but like, did you like it?
I remember liking all of them. Like when I read them, I remember liking all the books. I remember liking the second one the most. That was my favorite of all the ones that I read.
What?
Yeah.
You are Team Bengus on this? This is insane.
So.
Listen, you should not come back to the internet. I was wrong. This was totally a mistake. Actually. I mean, I really like the second book. Like that's the thing. I actually think there's no wrong answers except for people that say like I like Dance with Dragons the most. I'm like, that's objectively wrong. But the rest of them, like I just feel like most people think the third one is the best. But it's also possible that it's been so long that you've merged the second and the third one together.
That's also true. Yeah.
Because it's been not even a year since Bookborn has read them, and she'll be like, I really like this scene in Storm of Swords where blank. I'm like, that was in Clash of Kings. And I think it's because like those two books lead right into each other. So
yes. Yeah, and I definitely read them all. Like
is this The Last of Us, Esme? Oh, I just see. Yeah, I want season 2. Yeah, The Last of Us is incredible. Like super, super good.
I did watch that with Andrew.
Did you like it?
I did. I liked it a lot.
I'm going to go back to what Jake said about Shogun season 1 might be the best season of television I've ever watched. So this is true. It is extremely good. However, it is not The Wire season 4, Jake. So if we're going to be friends, you need to watch The Wire because I'm tired of this heresy. This is a crazy answer, Helg. This is insane. Did you ever read like A Slow Regard for Silent Things and like the new one, the Narrow Road Between Desires?
I haven't read the new one. I do have it. I think I just pre-ordered it whenever it came up. But I did read The Slow Regard of Silent Things, and I liked it. I think from a psychiatry perspective, it's kind of interesting. Like her odd withdrawal from everything, these repetitive things that she keeps doing. Like I think it's fascinating, but I would have, obviously rather had the other book than a short story about following her through her little day-to-day eccentricities.
Yeah. But I really like that character. So I know that like the novella is like esoteric and stuff, but I think I'm gonna actually really like it. But yeah, we'll see. I plan to read it like right after the second book. I had a thought and I lost it. So we're gonna continue on to this, which is that I think Shogun takes place in the Wire universe, which is very funny. Man, what was my thought? It's gone. Yeah. So, what are you reading right now?
I guess I'll finish Dragonfly Falling. I just finished the anthology of short stories.
Oh, like you just finished that?
I just finished it. What other book do I have that is partially read right now? I feel like there's another one that I have on the go other than Dragonfly Falling. I'm almost finished 20th Century Boys. So I just finished volume 9 of that. So I only have a couple more left, which has also been really good. And I do want to finish up 20th Century Boys because I want to start Berserk. That was on my list of things to start for this year, but I don't want to have another big manga series open before I get into Berserk. And so I'm working hard to finish up 20th Century Boys now.
Colton is going to be very excited to hear that.
Yeah.
I have started Berserk, And I decided to dip my toes into manga because manga is super expensive, and that is the reason I don't read it. Like it's not, it
Mhm.
has nothing to do with the medium. It's just like they go on forever, and it's like I feel like I have to sell my house to be able to read One Piece. Like I don't understand how people read this, and I know that's like they there's a lot of online stuff to do it. And so my library had like a bunch of different ones. So I tried a couple, and I tried Attack on Titan, which I know is one of your favorites for the show, right? Like you really like the anime.
I did. I do still really like it. I did not like the ending, and I'm not alone in that sentiment.
Yeah,
So I
I've
think it
heard
kind
that.
of
Yeah.
colored the rest of the show for me. But I do like. I think it's great. Very strong start to a series, and it has a lot of really cool ideas.
I didn't really like the first volume of the
Which
manga.
is
Like
weird because the first couple episodes of the show are so intense and so good. So I haven't read the beginning. I read the end of the manga because I wanted to know what happened before the
right.
show ended, but I never did read the beginning. So I wonder if it's the same or if it doesn't translate the same. I
I
remember
think it
watching
was
the
just
first couple
I remember
episodes.
the action. So I started with One Piece, and that was fine. Like I'll continue at some point, but it was fine.
Hmm.
And then I read the first volume of Vinland Saga, which I thought was
Hmm.
really good.
It is
And
really
then
good.
I read Attack on Titan, and I felt like in comparison to those two, the action was really hard to follow in
Right.
Attack on Titan, and it just
That's
kind of
fair.
like the art wasn't as good. But then I read Berserk, and boy howdy, do I like Berserk. I didn't know that I would like, and I really and Colton's been getting on me because I'm reading it very slowly because I never reach for manga, and I'm reading it on my phone, so it's not like I have um like a visual reminder. And then I'm just like, oh yeah, like I should go read that. And then it'll take me like 3 weeks to read a volume. And Colton's like, why are you going so slow? And I'm like, because I don't read this stuff often. Oh, here we go.
Andrew is
Yeah,
very excited
Berserk.
for me to watch it too. He has a lower threshold for gory, sad stuff than I do, but he still thinks that it's going to be tough for me. It's like, you don't know what you're getting into. I'm like, well, you read it, so I can do it.
So you're tougher than him visually, or he's tougher than you?
I think just in general, like emotionally, he like things get to him more than
Oh,
they
okay.
get to me.
Okay. So I'm only 6 volumes into Berserk.
Hmm.
And I haven't. There's only been one little part where I was like, "Ooh, this was rough for me," but it is, kind of dark generally. But there's just the one little scene, and Colton was nice enough um to tell me about it ahead of time. So,
Colton, you missed the beginning of this stream where it was decreed that you have to be nice to me. So
and then you missed the part slightly after that where we said we're gonna bully you anyway. Yeah, I do want to try the anime. I don't have access to it right now, but I will. I will try. I'm very, very early into my manga anime journey. So
journey, you should read some that are shorter, that are limited. It's go read Monster.
I want to read Monster. I'm literally I just told you that I'm limited to what my library has. My library has all of Berserk. So I
Okay.
know that I can finish it. And then I just bought, I guess you can't see it here. I put it at the very top. I just bought over here, the
Hmm.
very top, Berserk.
That looks like a deluxe
Because
version.
yeah, it's volume 10 to 12, I think. Someone was selling it for $30. And I was like, well, it's
Mm-hmm.
only 68 here. So I'm like, that's a pretty good deal. So
May as well take it.
yeah. Yeah, there's only one part in the first 6 volumes that I thought was rough. Like, it's I guess I have no heart, but that one
I
part
guess
got me.
I have no heart. And like usually my kids will pick up the stuff that I'm reading, like even 20th Century Boys, which can be weird at times, and like flip through it and they're like, can I read this? Can I read that? I'm like, when I read Berserk, I have to hide that under like
I
a
okay. I actually have
in a vault or something so that they don't
I
pick it
have a
up.
really funny story about getting that Berserk. So I was at work. I had like a training session, and then we were all like having a drink after work, and I was going to meet this person to like on Facebook Marketplace to go pick this up after. And
Mm-hmm.
so like 2 of my coworkers left. They're like, we're gonna walk home. So they left. And then I like stayed to finish my drink and pay and whatever. And then I like got in the car and went to where this person told me, and I didn't know where my coworker lived. And I went to where this person told me. And so I pulled up in front of this guy's house right as my 2 coworkers were walking up. So it looked like I
Mm-hmm.
followed them while they walked to
Oh.
his house.
Oh
And then I was
God.
like, what are you guys doing here? And he's like, I live right here. So I was going to this guy's neighbor's house, which of all places is just wild. And I'm like, oh, I'm just here to like pick up a book. Like, and he's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, do you want to see my house? Because he just bought a house. I
Do
was
I
like, yeah,
see my house?
sure. But let me just like, I'm gonna buy this. So the guy comes out and he hands me Berserk, and he's like, "So what did you buy?" I'm like, "Oh, I just bought a manga." And he's like, "Oh, cool." And I was like, I really didn't want to show him. So like, I was like, "Oh yeah, it's just like, this like thing I'm like kind of getting into." And so like, he shows me his house and stuff. And thankfully, he had no interest in learning what it was I bought, because I would have had to been like if I showed him, I would have been like, "I swear, like I'm not crazy."
Here's the first page. Like, I know the first page of the first deluxe volume is like, whoa, okay, this is what we're in for.
Yeah. Yeah, the first page is a little wild. No, it was 30 bucks. He only had one volume he was selling. So he only had volume, like I think it's the deluxe edition is like volume 10 to 12, and that was the only one he was selling. So I don't know if that's just where this, I honestly kind of was interested if like he just got to that part, he was like, "That's it, I'm done." Or like, I don't know why he was just selling that one, but that's true.
They wouldn't know the back was the first page. Fair enough.
Yeah, One Piece is way too long. Have you ever read or watched One Piece?
I have not. For a long time, I would only, I used to be, you think I'm picky now. I used to be way pickier. So for a long time, I would only watch anime that was limited. So like 30 episodes or less, that didn't have too much fan service. And like there were a bunch of requirements. So I watched very specific things and have only branched out after into longer stuff. But One Piece is still too much for me. I don't know. I might read it. I don't think I'll ever watch 1,000.
It's very long. Well, they're now doing like somebody who is more knowledgeable about this can correct me, but they're doing a like a remake of the anime and like condensing it now that because I think a different company made it and they like put in a bunch of filler because they were waiting for the manga to catch up or something like that. And then now they're redoing it and now they have like a better idea of the pacing. So they're going to like condense stuff. I think that's what's going on. And that's the one that I will watch because I can't do 1,000 episodes of that. I already know she didn't watch the live action because she doesn't watch TV. I think you would I think you would really like the live action. And it's only 8 episodes. You could watch it with the family.
Okay, maybe I will. Maybe I'll get Andrew to watch it too, because he has not read, or I think he started One Piece. He's like, yeah, I got like a little bit into it. I'm like, what's a little bit? He's like, I don't know, maybe episode 200. I'm like, it is sad that that's getting a little bit into it. Like you've watched 200 episodes of this. But no, maybe I should watch the live action. I have heard that people like it.
Yeah, I've watched the live action twice, and it's just like very enjoyable. And like my wife watched it, and she had no history. Like I don't think she's ever watched an anime that I can think of besides Sailor Moon as a kid. So she has no like history in that genre, and she loved it. She loved it. So I thought it was really good.
Fair enough.
Yeah, are you somebody that needs an ending, generally speaking, or
nope.
you're just comfortable let things go?
I'm comfortable letting it go, and I like an ambiguous ending. I don't need my endings to wrap everything up either. Sometimes I prefer it.
Interesting. I actually, an ending will make or break for me. Like if I have an ending, like I think that I'm very critical of endings, but I don't care that A Song of Ice and Fire isn't finished, except that like I want more of it. I actually wish he just like wrote like 500-page books just like every couple of years and just kept it going. Like I think people accuse like the 4th and 5th books of being bloated. But that's only because we get 2 books every 25 years or whatever. But if it was just like released in more digestible chunks more frequently, I think people would like it a bit more.
That makes sense.
What would you consider as like one of your favorite endings?
Of anything ever? What endings do I love? I'm trying to think. I definitely did a video on this because I remember someone commenting and being like, "No female authors. Way to be a bad feminist."
That's so funny.
Thank you.
Wow, called you out.
They did. I think it might have been like with recent books though, because I remember I put Greatcoats on there because I had just finished reading it and I really loved the way that it ended out. So I think it was just like a here's some endings recently that I have really enjoyed.
You and Alan do in fact have in common that you hate women, so
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
The Dark Tower ending I actually do like. I don't know that it's my favorite ending of all time, but I don't have
the hatred for it
that other people have. And again, I read Dark Tower the day it came out. So there was nothing to compare to. There was nothing to like. There was no one to talk about it with, except my dad, who hated it. but I did really like it. I actually wrote a letter to Stephen King after I finished it. It was the only time I've ever written a letter to an author.
I think that's so cool. I wish that I did that, but I don't. Vagabond is also a manga that I really want to read. I think that would be right up my alley. The end of Dark Tower is like I like it. I don't like a lot of things that happen in the last book, but I don't consider that the ending. I consider that the last book. Like I think the ending of Dark Tower, like I really like. Yeah,
the falling action.
It's so hard to recommend that series.
Yes, it is hard to recommend it, and I find we talked about this. I think you were on the stream when I talked about this before. Maybe when I talked about how
we talk about like Harrow the Ninth and stuff.
Yeah, like Gideon the Ninth reminds me of the Dark Tower, which is also a really difficult series to recommend to people because it's just so weird, and chances are high that you're going to really hate it. But if you like it, you're probably going to really like it. And I think it's the same thing with Dark Tower. Like it's one of those things where you got to be all in or just be like, what is this? Why would anybody do any of these things?
Yeah. For a while, I kind of wanted my wife to read Dark Tower just because it was wild. And then I was like, she's going to hate this. So then I just told her all the stuff that happened. And she was like, why would you read this? And I'm like, it really, it sounds really bad. Actually, I just explained to her what Shadow of the App was today because she's reading Children of Time. And she's liking it. She has a fear of spiders. And actually, I guess I'll tell you this because this just got confirmed today. I'm interviewing Adrian Tchaikovsky and Ken Liu together in a little while.
Wow.
So I'm very, very excited about that. But I was telling my wife about it because she's reading Adrian Tchaikovsky. So she's like, wow, like I went to a bookstore and picked this up and now you're interviewing this guy. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to tell him that like you're helping him he's helping you with your fear of spiders. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, he really likes bugs. So he'll be really excited. She's like, what do you mean he really likes bugs? I'm like, oh, he like writes like lots of bug stuff. And I'm like, I showed her a picture of him in his little bug sweater. She's like, he does really like bugs. And I was like, yeah, he has like Shadow of the App, which is like a big series where like, people are like bugs, but like not really. And I was explaining it to her. And now as I was explaining it to her, I'm like, I promise it doesn't sound like it doesn't read as silly.
No, as
it sounds. Like it's a very hard pitch.
Speaking of, if you have a fear of spiders, something weird happened here a couple of days ago. The Walmart in Gander, like small town, middle of Newfoundland, winter is already coming. A shipment of bananas came in, and with them came one of those giant huntsman spiders from Australia, like, the ones that are like you see on the wall, and they're just these giant legs and stuff. And so it was all of the news because I live in such a small town. So like all of the town websites are like, did you know there's a giant spider? Stay out of Walmart for today if you don't want to see the giant spider. So then me and the kids were like, we should go see the giant spider. we didn't find him. I think they caught him, got rid of him.
So you're fine with spiders?
I like bugs. I don't like wasps.
But you don't like whales.
I really am scared of whales. I don't dislike them. And my kids say this too. I don't dislike whales. I think whales are cool. I don't want to see them. I don't want to hear them. I don't want to do anything with them. I think they're scary.
That's so strange. You're such a strange person.
I have no idea where it comes from.
I'm afraid of moths. I don't know if I've ever said that.
You did.
Yeah, did I? I don't like. Oh yeah, no, I said that in the Discord because you guys were talking about Perdido Street Station. I was like, I don't like moths, but I don't think that'll affect my reading of Perdido Street Station. But yeah, the other day I was like leaving the house, and so like our front screen door sometimes doesn't close all the way if you don't like actually close it, and I guess we just like left it open in the night, so like a moth had come in between the door and the screen door and just like sat. So I went to leave the house and I opened the door and there was a giant moth like right at eye level, and I just closed the door. And my wife was at work and I texted her and I was like, there's a moth on the door, you're gonna have to deal with that. And I just went out the back door.
That's so funny.
I've spent years getting rid of spiders for her. She can get rid of one moth for me.
That's fair. She can protect you from the moth.
Yeah, I hear Assassin's Fate is a good ending. Moths are terrifying. Thank you for agreeing with me. And Sarah does love bats. This is true.
I do love bats. I love them.
I vaguely remember you reading the Winnowing Flame series because there's giant bats. Did you like that series? Did you finish it?
I only read book 1, and I was really sad because I read the first book, and you should, like, theoretically, all of the parts that make up the ninth reign is the first one, right? all of the parts that make up the ninth reign should be all of the things that I love. It does have giant bats. I love witches. It has like a snarky, older female scientist character, which I love. Love that in Lady Trent, and just like so many things that I should like. I just didn't like the way it all came together. I don't know if it was the writing. I just felt like the plot was really clunky. I had really high expectations. Maybe that impacted it too. And I just haven't had the desire to go on. I bought them all three of them at once because I'm,
Yeah, I
not
found all
smart.
three of them used, and it's weird because a lot of people whose like opinions I don't line up with loved them, and then people who like I generally align with more have kind of the same opinion where they're like interesting ideas but clunky execution. So I'm not like super pumped to try them, but I really like the covers and I
covers are
really
so
want
nice.
to like them. So I
know.
hope that I do.
I
And
want them
Evie,
to.
I don't know when I would be able to see these two in person because Adrian lives in the UK. Oh, we lost Sarah. I think she got disconnected. She lives in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to give her a minute and continue answering Evie's question, which is that I will be having Adrian and Ken on the channel, hopefully next week, if not the week after. We had a date lined up for sure, and then Adrian just like had to change the day, so I just have to wait for confirmation from Ken. But yeah, so they'll be on the channel, and I'm very excited. This is so funny, Matt. This is hilarious. Yeah, she's like she's not back there at all right now, so I guess we just lost her. So okay, I guess this has become just a chill stream with me for now. Sarah is under whale attack. And yes, I'm very excited for it. I think that they are a natural fit. I actually like looked up if they had ever done an interview together before, like had a talk, and I could not find anything. So I thought that they hadn't. And then Ken said that he's like, oh, I've talked to Adrian before, and it's always a great time. And I'm like, did you mean like personally, or did you mean hello? You've returned to us.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This would happen when Andrew's not home. Like the day that I'm here by myself, everything. This happened before the stream too. Before we came in, I was like, oh no, I have to fix stuff. But I'm back. I have no idea what was happening. I was fiddling with the cord, so I'm assuming I like yanked something out.
Well, you sound your audio sounds better now. Not that it sounded poor before, but you sound crisp. Okay, also, well, Matt had a very funny comment that he had to.
Thank goodness. My daughter sometimes will be driving by water, like the ocean, and Juliet will be like, "Hey, Mom, a match before whale just jumped up right now." I'm like, Juliet, that's not going to happen. She's like, but imagine if it did. And I'm like, can we not? I don't need exposure response therapy, actually. If I can just go without imagining that, please.
Oh, I remember what I was going to talk about earlier, which is when you're reading, like, when you're reading a book, do you naturally go into it and the mindset of, like, your background playing an influence, or do you kind of just go with that based on whether or not the book itself is engaging with psychology? Because the reason I ask before you go is that a lot of times I feel like I don't, and I have less schooling than you in psych. But whenever a book even like starts to touch on stuff that I know about, I'm like, you better get this right. And I find I'm like way more critical because of it. So how does that affect you?
No, I don't usually think about it too much. The times, to be honest, sometimes certain things will happen in a book, or characters will react in a certain way, or authors will talk about certain topics, and it will make me wonder things about the author, which I keep to myself because I don't feel like it's my place to be speculating about people's mental health on the internet. But sometimes I will then Google an author and be like, and then sometimes my suspicions will be confirmed, and sometimes my suspicions will be left in the open. But unless it's super character focused and I am feeling super pulled in and characters react in a certain way and I'm judging, do I feel like people would do that in real life? Like, is this a pattern that I see play out with real people, or is this unexpected? And is it unexpected in a believable way, or unexpected in just an unresearched way? But I have to actively try to do that. Most of the time I just let it kind of flow over me.
Right. Yeah. I can't talk about this book much yet because we're doing an update with the TBR contest with Jake and Ben. But one of the books that Jake made me read is I Know This Much Is True by Wally Lamb. Have you ever read this book? Okay, so the premise of the book is it's twins, and you get the narration from one twin, and the other twin has schizophrenia, and he's been like like at the very beginning of the book, he cuts off his own hand because he thinks that will help stop the Korean War, or maybe the Vietnam War. That makes more sense with the time period. So it's like him trying to deal with the fact that his brother's like getting worse and like all this kind of stuff. And Jake was like, I really want to see you react to this book, and I have a feeling it was because it's very really immersed in psychology stuff, and like I can't tell you what I thought of it yet. But what I will say is, in all of the psychology stuff that I know, schizophrenia is like the least. Like I took one class that dealt with schizophrenia like 10 years ago, and so I'm just like, man, I wish somebody would read this book that like knew more about schizophrenia than I do, because like I know just like the bare minimum, and I don't know if it like helped to hurt that aspect of it for me. But it is a book that is about schizophrenia, if you ever feel like you want to pick that up.
Maybe someday. Last year I read a nonfiction about one of the families that provided a lot of the early research for schizophrenia. That was really good.
It's was that Hidden Valley Road?
Yeah.
I like that book a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to respond to Evie real quick, though. When are we picking the picks for you? So I actually didn't want to schedule any lives until I figured out this Adrian and Ken thing. So we can schedule it now. I didn't want to. It was so difficult to schedule that between the three of our availabilities that I didn't want to hinder any other availability. And I saw earlier you asked, I literally just reached out to them. I just thought it would be cool because they both write sci-fi and fantasy, and they both like are very like intelligent, forward thinkers about like technology and stuff, and they never talked that I had saw. So I was like, this would be a good discussion, and hopefully
it will happen.
Yeah. I saw another Guy Gabriel K also does good endings. That is true.
I agree with that. Of the endings that I've read so far.
Yeah. You've read Taigana and Under Heaven?
Yep.
You need to read Lord of Emperors.
And I've read the two.
Duh. Yeah, we literally did like the whole. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was great. That was Vindication when you loved those.
Yeah, they have excellent endings. I mean, the first one doesn't have a great ending because, in my opinion, they're just one book. But the first one just blends into the second. Spoiler for the end of the year, they're going to count as one book on any end of year list that I might make, because I think of them.
That's okay. I'm going to assume that it's number one, so I'll accept that.
Nonfiction per year. I'm going to go ahead and answer without you even bringing it up, Kyle. My aim is 10 per year, but I don't always get that. Sometimes I read like 8. Sometimes I read more than 10. But I do aim to try to do almost one a month. I just know every month it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I do a lot of my nonfiction by audio now. It's much easier for me to fit it in. And I actually, I've been meaning to read Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman for like 10 years. And then Daniel Kahneman died this year, which was very sad. And I was like, I guess this is the year to read it. So I finally read it, and like it confirmed to me that I'm like out of practice reading nonfiction with my eyes, because it took me a really long time to read it. And like it was very interesting, but I just would like read 10 pages and be like, okay, I'm going to go back to my fantasy book now.
It is a dense book, to be fair.
It is. It is dense.
But it's a good one to read with your eyeballs, because of all the little charts and stuff that he has in there.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't do audio. I tried it on audio, and it was just like very dense with information. So I didn't do that. But I read a lot of nonfiction per year, but that's counting memoirs, which I think memoirs are like 0.5 of a nonfiction. Like you got to read 2 memoirs to count as a real book. So
I feel like I need to. Oh, so go ahead.
What I was going to say about Hidden Valley Road, though, is I wonder if you agree with this criticism, which is that he got all of his sources from like the 2 daughters. And then like near the end of the book, he just like goes on and talks about their lives. But then they don't have schizophrenia, or they're not involved. They're just like, and then, Sarah went and picked up her daughter from daycare, and she was really, and it was like and I'm like, dude, what? And then at the very end, he's like, thank you to these 2 people for being my sources. I'm like, oh yeah, you just kind of wandered off at the end there.
Yes. And that is what I mentioned, I think, when I reviewed it too, is that that narrative that he set up about their lives, I felt like I did not need that focus, and it did kind of show the little skew in his research process.
Yeah. What were you going to say before? Do you remember?
Yes. Well, it was based on someone's comment. So yes, about Lord of Emperors. I was going to say, I feel like the first thing that I need to do when I come back to BookTube, or the first thing that I want to do, is a review of the Sarah T. Mosaic, because I did not know that a couple of booktubers that we're friends with really didn't like that series.
There's one booktuber, and when I see Petrick, the first thing I'm gonna do is lightly stab him. Like, not stab him to like really, just like a little cut, just so he has to like, it ruins his day a little, you know? Because that review makes me upset. I don't understand, but
and I would like books that people find suspect for sure. So everybody is entitled to their bad takes. But I don't understand how you could not like it. I genuinely think it's one of the best fantasy books I've ever read.
He has not read Lord of Emperors. He read Sailing to Sarantium.
Sailing to Sarantium.
Yeah, and I don't like the thing. I mean, so his Sailing to Sarantium review. Also, Petrick, if you ever watch this, like, it's totally fine. But his Sailing to Sarantium review is fine. Like, it's all the things he says in it are like true. Even if I don't agree with him, he's like, oh, like Crispin does that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like I could see why someone would like that. His Lions of Alberson review. I'm so sorry, Petrick. I don't understand it at all, because he DNF'd it and he gave it 1 star, and he was like, yeah, I just feel like you need to know a lot about Spain in order to read this book. And I'm like, that's not true. I knew nothing about Spain. So I think he kind of got in his head for that one. But yeah, just, sometimes authors don't work for someone, and that's very sad.
My only answer, the only thing I remember about the review and some of the complaints that I had heard from other people was that everybody wanted to have sex with Crispin. Like, but have you stopped to think that maybe Crispin's really bangable? Like, maybe that's just a true fact. Like, some people do. Some people do pull,
I thought that during the book. I just liked the book so much that I didn't care. I was like, wow, this other, very important woman wants to sleep with this, artisan. But I'm like, you know what? I don't care. The book's great.
It is great.
I read so many memoirs, Evie. I read tons. I bet I've read several hundred memoirs, and some of them are trash. Okay? They're just like a publisher called a celebrity one day, and they were just like, hey, do you want to release a book? And they're like, I don't have anything to say. And they're like, that doesn't matter to us. Just release a book. And so they release a book.
I like Educated. That's a good memoir.
Educated is a fantastic memoir. Yeah, I love that one. I actually already read Kelly Bishop's memoir, Matt, and it was good. I liked it.
Interesting.
I like Gilmore Girls. So, yeah.
Evie, good. I'm glad that could come out of this live, that you're going to finish Sailing to Sarantium. I feel accomplished now.
Yeah. Evie, I just think, was going through a moment with that book, and then she read Brightness Long Ago first, and she really liked it. And then me and Jake were like, yeah, it's kind of like his most experimental book in terms of like the stuff he does in it. And then she started Sailing to Sarantium, and then she's like, maybe I only like that one book because of the experimental stuff I did. I'm like, he did. I'm like, no, like I don't think, like, it's not that much stuff. I think that book wasn't working for you in the time. But hey, Pete, listen to me. Don't you throw stones in glass houses, because you. Hey, I was, I don't know what to say. Yeah, I don't know about that, Pete. His Sunlit Man review also is a little strange, but you know what? Petrick does 3,000 very in-depth fantasy reviews a year, so he can say whatever he wants. What's your next Sanderson?
My next Sanderson.
Your next Sanderson.
What am I going to read? I should read Stormlight, I guess.
Yeah. I'm reading the sample of the 5th book now, and I have so many thoughts. And so they're doing the sample chapters, so 2 a week. Yep. And then NetGalley has all of the chapters that they're going to release. So the first 2 parts of the book. So it's the first 330 pages of the book. And I got that. And I'm almost done that, but now I'm way ahead of everybody else. I have so many things to say and 0 people to talk to it about. And there was actually one thing that drove me crazy. Stormlight is my second favorite series, and I have criticisms of this first part. And one thing made me so annoyed that I had to rant about it to book one. I asked her first. I didn't just just show up and spoil her. I was like, this is very minor, but it's really making me mad. I need to talk about it with someone. And I told her, and she was like, you know what? You can't tell me anything else like this. And I was like, oh no.
I'm sorry. I have not read Stormlight, but I will read them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll feel with Stormlight the same way you do with most of his books. The only pitfall or potential good is that it's way more about people's like mental health struggles. So
Right.
that will either make you like it a lot more, or you'll be like, I don't think he handles this as well as he could, so you'll like it less. Like I think that will be what hinges it for you. But yeah, like each character is kind of like, you know, dealing with a different type of mental struggle.
I am excited. Speaking of Adrian Tchaikovsky, there's a new Dogs of War book coming out, right?
Yes. I don't think it has a release date. I think he just finished writing it. It's probably next year.
That's exciting.
Next year's going to have so many good books.
Is that what else is coming out next year?
So Guy Gavriel Kay just announced a new book coming out in May. And then we have the new Joe Abercrombie book.
Yes.
We have the Sanderson Secret Project that I know you don't care about, but I care about. And then we have Winds of Winter, always and forever.
Cool. Can we put Electo the Ninth on there too? Then, if Winds
yes,
of Winter
I actually was going to say Electo the Ninth is most likely coming out next year. We have I just blanked on Scott Lynch novellas, and potentially Thorns of Emberlane. I think that'll be 2026. But there's a completed draft, and he's editing it, so that could be like a late 2025 release. And there's like a bunch more that I think might come out. Oh, Red God. Red Rising.
Yeah.
And then we have the last Sun Eater book. So, you know, just deuces are wild. 2025 is the year.
That's exciting.
You found chapter 1 of what? Very boring, Laura.
Book 5?
Oh, I don't remember what happens in chapter 1. I just think you're a hater all the time, Laura. So that's fine. There's new KJ Parker. And I agree. Like I would start with Mistborn or Warbreaker personally, Rick, if you were going to start with Sanderson.
Starting somewhere. Warbreaker was my first book when I came back into Sanderson. I read his superhero series like a long time ago, the YA one. The YA one? What's it? I don't remember what they're called. I'm not hearing you. Is this a me problem, chat, or can you guys not hear Kyle too? It is that book, but I don't hear you. Okay, it wasn't just a me problem. Excellent. You moved your microphone up.
I know, but usually that doesn't matter that much.
Oh, it mattered today.
Oh, I guess it is. Okay. Interesting. Anyway, Steelheart.
Yes, I did read that.
Okay.
I read.
Yeah. And I have not read that. What do you think of it?
I did not like it.
Okay. I don't expect to like it that much either. It's actually the only Sanderson I haven't read.
Okay.
I've read everything else. I just read his whole middle grade series, and that was fine. Like it was good.
It was fine.
It's exactly what I expected. Like it was fun. I just wanted to read it to be a completionist, and then we're each like 2 hours.
That's fair.
I'm dying. It's not good. Like I don't expect it to be very good, but at this point, I've read 50 some Sanderson books. I'm gonna just not read this one trilogy. Like, no, I'm gonna read it.
Right. I mean, at least it's Sanderson. There was one author that I was a completionist with, had read all of his work, was prepared to make many videos, and his name was Neil Gaiman. So it could be worse.
Listen, here's the thing. I had a list of authors that I wanted to finish their books for this year, or like start to, because I like to read everything an author's written. And Neil Gaiman's on that list. And the only book I haven't read is Anansi Boys. And I was like, well, I'll read it in like June or July or something. And like I was like, and then that all came out. And I was like, I can't do it. But you know what? I thought about it. I still think I'm going to finish that book because I'm not going to let him ruin it for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I was already planning on reading this book. It's a book I've wanted to read for a long time. And I'm just going to pretend it's written by Shmuel Bayman while I'm reading it. And I'll just move on after. And but it's very sad. The whole thing is very upsetting.
It is very upsetting.
I also think Sarah would like the first Skyward book. She might even like the second.
That's fair. My dad has those, so I can get them from him. He has all the Sanderson books except for the first Mistborn trilogy, because I'm the person who bought that one, but I still let him hold on to them because he likes them a lot more than I do.
Laura, do you forget that we have like all the same favorite books? yes, last year she did like here's all of my favorite 5-star reads, and all of them were books I gave 5 stars to. So she's being insane.
You know what? I'm thinking back to the ending, and I'm remembering now. This is a series that I had not finished when I made that video, but I love the ending to the Jade saga, Jade Legacy.
Yes, that's one of my
excellent
favorite
ending.
endings. Yeah, I need to reread that. So Fonda Lee is coming to Dragonsteel, and like my wife is coming too. So I have a hack to just get the whole trilogy signed, because I'm just gonna have her hold one and I'll hold two, and then I'll get the whole trilogy signed. And I'm like, this is why you marry people.
That's true. That's how you know it's love. She's gonna hold on to your books for you. Jade Legacy is awesome.
Yeah. Have you read the Untethered Sky, the novella?
I haven't, but I just watched a video. Elliot Brooks did a standalone fantasy video where she tier ranked a bunch of her favorite standalones, and that was really high. She really enjoyed it. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, because when I stopped making booktube videos, I also stopped watching a lot of them, just because life is really busy. This year's been just wild from a work and personal life perspective. So it's been a lot of stuff going on. So I haven't had the chance to watch a ton. So I don't know what the general consensus is on Untethered Sky, but I would read it.
I really liked it. It's a novella. Like I like, it didn't blow my mind. I don't think it's like the same level as Greenbone, but a lot of people I saw were like, oh, like it just wasn't very good because it's not like Greenbone. And I'm like, I mean, it's a 150-page little thing. Like I thought it was a nice little self-contained story, with like hawks that were giant. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. But yeah, I mean, I also like knowing what it was, the story of like she just wanted to like write something short to like kind of flush herself of the Greenbone stuff. I'm like, yeah, like I didn't expect too much from it, and so it kind of met my expectations.
Oh, you know what else had a good ending that I read on vacation? You asked me what I was reading on vacation. Never Die. Oh,
you finished Never Die.
I did.
This is huge news. You did a video. Actually, listen, I bullied you enough for a while, so I'm going to be nice again.
It's okay.
We're transitioning to nice, which is that you have some of my favorite videos on BookTube, like truly, like really, really great videos. Like there's only a couple people whose videos I've watched twice. And one of the videos I've watched twice is the video of you trying to like rank
the first sentences.
The first sentences. That video is truly astonishing. And Never Die was in that, and that was in like 2022 or something like that. And I'm very happy that you finally read it. But that doesn't have I really like the ending of that book.
It is a nice ending. It all comes together. Like it is not a surprise ending. Like the building blocks of like, you can see the ending coming. Like, you know what is happening. He does not try to hide or like shade over what he is doing, but it still feels really nice to see it all come together. And for a short book, it was, well done. I think it was a good, the plot.
Did you read the physical book?
Yes.
You got over the formatting issues?
I got over it. That's what kept me from reading it for so long. But I brought it on vacation, and I only brought a couple of things. I was like, well, it's read this or stare at the wall. So you're going to have to look at it. But once I got into it, it didn't bother me quite as much. But I still think it's a disservice to self-published books to give them such weird margins.
Yeah. The like Richard Nell Kingdoms of Ash series, or that was the word. I actually just physically couldn't read those books. I had to read the ebooks and like the audio, because I don't know. He did the page numbers on the inside, which don't do that, people. Like, I really hate it. Like, so like if you open a book,
like close to the middle,
it's literally in the middle of
weird.
Like. I'm like, this is incredibly strange. I think this was I think that was a mistake that he just like decided to roll with instead of like reprinting the books, because
that's fair.
Yeah. Are you going to continue on with the Mortal Techniques?
I don't know. I was happy with the way that one ended. Is it worth going on? Like, are they equivalent or better going on?
So Pawn's Gambit is a little bit more polarizing. Like, I think people still generally like it. But there's some people who like it more, and some people who are like, oh, this was like a big step down. It's more based on strategy than fighting.
Okay.
And the main character is less likable than the people in the first book. But I really liked how that book came together too. Like, I found the premise of the second one is that each of the gods are having a competition, and they each choose a champion, and they have to go on like a treasure hunt basically to like then become the finalists in this competition. And so this one god chooses a minor character from the first book as her champion. And I thought that book was really good. But the third book is incredible. Like Spirits of Vengeance is one of my favorite. I would consider it a standalone. Like you can just pick it up and read it by itself. But it has little connections to the first two that makes the entire 3 books better.
Okay, well,
and it has a very good ending. And I think you'll like it. There's like a little like animal-y companion type thing that I think you'd like.
Love that. Yep. All right, cool. I will definitely read them. Speaking of, when you said treasure hunt, it sparked. Were you one of the people who read The Will of the Many with us?
Yes.
I definitely love that book. That's one of my favorite books from this year.
Yes, I think that is my second favorite book this year. And by the way, that reminds me. Did you know that Alan is very mad at you?
Why? I mean, he always is, but why right now? Why at this moment?
Well, to be fair, this was like 3 months ago or whatever. But he was on some stream somewhere talking about how he's mad that you were reading The Will of the Many with me and then reading Dragonfly Falling with me. And I was like, Alan, she's reading it with lots of people.
About this. Let's see.
And he's like, your name is always brought up every single time people are reading books that I want to read. I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think you just remember the times.
I'm trying to see, because usually when he's mad, he'll like message, be like, you did something bad. But I don't have a message about this, so
I don't know. Maybe it was a long time ago, but it was about Will of the Many because somebody had brought it up. I think it was on not this last one yesterday, but on the Chatting with Nuts previous, where he was like, "I'm never gonna read that," and now Sarah's reading it, and she's reading it with a bunch of people.
So F that. Let's see, Colton. I'm twisting behind to see which Stephen King books are behind me. I kind of want to read Hearts in Atlantis. I think that's a short story collection, but I think one of them might tie to The Gunslinger or to The Dark Tower.
Yes.
So, and Under the Dome. That's the one you love, right?
Ooh. Actually, no, I'm not going to tell you that. I was going to say let's buddy read Under the Dome, but then you'll never read it. So
then I'll never get through it. Just wait for me to start it and then like quietly start it. And when I start talking about it on Discord, you could be like, oh yes, let's discuss.
I can't discuss it with you. No. You'll break your leg and you'll stop reading it. You'll get temporary glaucoma, like just for like that day, and then you'll be like, I can't read this book, and then reading any other book will cure your glaucoma, and then you'll be like, well, I can't go back to that book that causes glaucoma. So,
I have read Piranesi and I really liked it.
Yes, I love Piranesi, and the show is not like the book, or. I only watched 4 episodes of the show because it was terrible, but the book is much better. And yeah, Hearts of Atlantis is really good. The first like novella, The Low Men in Yellow Coats, is fantastic, like one of King's best things. And then the rest of the book is like decent. Like that is the reason why that book is good, but the rest of it's not bad or anything. It's front loaded to the beginning, and then they made a movie of it with Anthony Hopkins that I really want to watch.
Okay, cool.
Evie, it's really hard to predict things with you. You are like the hardest person. I want to say you will really like it, but I also can figure out several reasons why you won't like it. So like I don't know.
Right, like the romance leans into the cheese, like into the cheesy aspect. So if you embrace it, you're like, yes, this is a feel-good romance. It's kind of corny, but that fits for the time period that he's writing in, and you go with it, then I think you're going to really like it. But I think other people could pick it up and be like, why are you reading this?
I reread 11/22/63 this year, and it has become my new favorite Stephen King book. And it's interesting because I read it when it came out, like the week it came out, and I would have been like 18 or 19 or something like that. And I wasn't in a relationship, and I liked the book a lot, but I was like, oh, the romance parts are just like, it drags me down a little. And then this time, now that I am married, the parts about the romance hit me very hard because like the premise of the book is like he's in the past to kill Kennedy or to stop the killing of Kennedy. So he falls in love and he's like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I got to do this. And then like get back to, and like, just that, like that internal conflict mattered a lot more to me now that I'm married. And I like put myself in that situation of like, oh, and it just like, I don't know. I thought the book was very beautiful and it kind of like moved up for me. So it's, just depends on how you take it.
Absolutely.
I do have a time machine, Pete. The Piranesi show is very good. Let's see.
Oh, is it out already?
No, he's making a joke.
Oh, but they're making something. Is it a movie or a show?
They're making a movie of it, but I don't
Like a
have
stop motion one, right?
Yeah, we don't have much like information about it yet. And yes, I do have plans on reading Prince of Nothing. I just bought this. I wanted all of the trilogy in the regular mass market paperbacks, and I gave up. So I only have this one like this and the rest of the series in mass market paperback, which drives me crazy. But that's how much I want to continue the series, Rogue. So I will be reading it as soon as I'm done all of these books for Jake and Ben. 6 books is too many.
Did you ever read The Magicians, Kyle?
That's so funny. That's one of the books that Ben gave me.
Oh, is it? And have you read it yet?
No.
I was wondering if you liked it. And not that you would tell me now anyway, because it's part of your challenge, even if you had read it. Because I read it and I did not love it at the time. And I remember at the time, I think it was because I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder about Lev Grossman. And I think when I read it, because I was such a fantasy fan and he was coming in and it was like literary fantasy, I was like, oh, you know what? Lev Grossman thinks he's too good for fantasy. He's writing something different. And I don't know.
Literary fantasy? I thought it was just like these guys just hang out.
It is not, I guess, genre-wise literary fantasy, but Lev Grossman is a literary person. So I think like the writing is really good. And I think that at the time, I think he had said some things about fantasy and I was just young and fiery. And I think I took umbrage against some of the things that he said and was like, you know what? I'm not going to like your book on purpose.
I guess it's good that I didn't know that then. Because sometimes that bothers me too.
But I think, being older and wiser, I probably wouldn't care about those things as much. And I would like to reread it. But he just released his Arthurian novel, which I did pick up, but I have not read yet. But I really want to read that. And I
saw that in the bookstore the other day, and I almost picked it up. But I was like, well, let me wait until I read The Magicians.
And see if you like it.
Because I want to know if I like that first. But I actually just had like an impulse. I never impulse buy. Hold on, let me grab it.
What is this blue book?
Okay, so I when I say I don't impulse buy, like I just mean like books that I wasn't already planning on buying. Like I might be like, oh, today's the day I buy, The Warrior Prophet. But I bought this purely just on how it looked, and I've heard of the book. I actually have an arc of it, but it was formatted all weird because UK NetGalley is terrible. But I just saw it in the store and it was on sale and it had just come out and I was like, oh man, it has like sprayed edges.
That is so pretty. Chappies is getting more sprayed edges now.
And it's so it's like shiny. And then if you take off the dust jacket, this is what it looks like on the actual book.
Yep, that's beautiful.
And I was just like, for $18 or whatever it was on sale, I was like, I gotta get this. And I'm like, even if I don't like the book, it just looks really nice. And I think my wife might like it too. So yeah, I was very impressive for like Indigo and just like.
Yeah, I like that they're getting nicer editions because books have become so expensive that I kind of want it to be nice if I'm dropping like, $45 on a hardcover.
Yeah, and I'm basic. I really like sprayed edges. Like I know that's like a trend that just happened recently and I love it every time. Like I think it looks so much better.
Was it a whale?
No, it is a fish.
I thought so.
It's like a fish skeleton. It's like a catfish. And the premise of the book is like they're on a big ship, like like there's a picture of it in the inside here. They're on a big ship, that's like a dragon boat, and they somebody gets murdered, and there's like the 12 heirs of the kingdom, and they have to figure out. So it's kind of like actually, I just put this together now. It's kind of like Gideon the Ninth, but on a boat instead of space.
On a boat. There we go.
Yeah, that's what they should put on there. Gideon the Ninth on a boat.
That's true.
Yeah, the books that Jake and Ben gave me are interesting because they gave me Leviathan. So Ben gave me Leviathan Wakes, which I already had wanted to read, and I read that at the same time as their newest book, The Mercy of Gods, which I can say I loved The Mercy of Gods. I thought that book was incredible, one of my favorite books of the year. But it was interesting reading it at the same time as Leviathan Wakes because that was their first book and this is their newest book. And then Jake gave me The Rage of Dragons, which I have not read yet. Yep. And then I Know This Much Is True, which I just finished. And what the hell was Jake's third book? Oh, To Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer. And that seems like a frightening book.
You talking about Leviathan Wakes just reminded me of another ending that I really love, and that is Daniel Abraham's ending for, what's the name of the series?
Long Price Quartet.
There we go. Thank you. Long Price Quartet. So for the Long Price Quartet, I love that ending too.
Interesting. I don't know that I love it. Like, I don't dislike it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the fourth book got a little silly. Like, I still liked it a lot because, like, the character writing and all this. I am a little silly, but I think just the premise of the fourth book, I'm like, I don't know where we're going. I don't know if this is the way I wanted the story to go. And then the ending righted that ship in a lot of ways, but it just kind of, I maybe wanted like one or two more things. But
Okay.
I have read the Empire trilogy that she co-wrote with Raymond Feist, but that is the only Jenny Words I've read. Have you read any?
I have not, but I have heard good things. I know there was a period of time where like Philip and Joanna and everybody were all reading her books, but I didn't jump on that train.
You would like the Empire trilogy. I'm like very sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Have you heard anything about it? Like what it's about?
No, I just heard she has nice writing.
So the Empire trilogy is the one that co-written with Raymond Feist, and the premise is it's kind of like an Asian kind of Japanese inspired society, and the daughter of this like clan, like, you know, women don't have a lot of rights. Like, they're just supposed to marry and do all the you know, traditional things of just being a housewife and like marrying for power and all that stuff. Her dad and her older brother in like the first chapter get killed in an ambush, and so then she becomes the leader. And so they're all just like, well, they all kind of just naturally understand she will become the leader temporarily until she marries a man, and then that man can lead it because, like, you know, women are stupid or whatever. And then she's like, you know what I'll do? What if I don't do that? What if I actually just lead, you know, challenge these things? And so like the first book especially is her like challenging all these like cultural cultural traditions of just how things have always done and why it doesn't make any sense. And it's a very good book. I think I like the first book the most in hindsight, but no, very good trilogy. Wars of Light and Shadow sounds scary to me. I don't know about that.
Scary. It's too much.
It's like 11 books of writing where you need a thesaurus. I don't know about that.
I'm excited for Joe. Is Joe Abercrombie's is that vampires? Did I make that up? Is his new book going to be about vampires?
I think you made it up.
Did I? What's his new book about?
I'm going to look it up. I think it's about like England and like having a new
vampire?
Well, hold on. I don't think there's vampires. I would love it if there were. Maybe I misread. Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city where he is certain a commendation and grand holy assignment awaits him, but his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters, and the mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them all in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves lurk at our borders and hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambition and comfort. With a hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has the devils on his side. First of all, that is a great blurb. And second of all, maybe you were thinking of the elves.
Maybe.
And like
maybe
wanting the flesh.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
That sounds way more interesting. I don't know if I read that blurb. Maybe I only read of like what he was talking about before the blurb came out, but that sounds really interesting.
But some people have read it now, right? Because like I said, I haven't watched a lot of videos, but I feel like I've seen thumbnails maybe of like the Gwyn brothers reviewing it. Have some people read it?
Some people have gotten it. I know Nicholas Eames posted that he got it early, and Petrick just got it. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. Maybe. But I haven't seen any reviews of it. I've just seen that people have gotten it.
Okay. But no, that blurb does sound really good. I mean, it's Joe Abercrombie. It's going to be great.
Yeah. That's another author I wanted to finish his like written works. Like I just have that YA trilogy. And it's like pretty short, but I hear mixed things. I was going to say you haven't
finished it, but I wasn't even thinking about that trilogy. It's like Vikings, isn't
it? Ish. I don't know.
Ish.
I mean, I haven't read it, so but I think that it's Viking inspired, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that the POV of the first book isn't the POV of the second book, or gets less time, and it really jars some people off. Yeah, we can buddy read it, Laura. That sounds good. I'm sure we'll both find it fine. That's what I expect.
Is that what happens when you guys buddy read together? It's just fine.
No, because it's like that's what everybody thinks of it. It seems it's like they love First Law, and then they read that one because they like Joe Abercrombie, and they're like, it's fine. Mike is a huge. I was just gonna say Mike is a huge Abercrombie fan, and he couldn't finish that trilogy.
Really?
Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, you said you reread 11/22/63 this year. Are you a big rereader? I don't remember this about you. Do you reread a lot?
Yes.
Okay.
I do reread a lot. I used to do it more when I wasn't so overwhelmed on my TBR.
Yes.
But like, I mean, I read my whole life, but then I didn't read that many books because I would just
Same.
reread books I already loved and then like pick up a couple new books a year. But like for the most part, like maybe I would read, like 30 books a year, but in that year I would reread all of Harry Potter and like, the
Over
Lord
and
of the
over
Rings. Or like,
again.
so it's like it didn't really count that much. Because I've read
Right.
Harry Potter like at least 12 times, like a lot of
So
times.
many times.
And then A Song of Ice and Fire is 7. And then Lord of the Rings I've read 4 times. So like, just and
so similar to me. And sometimes I'm hard on myself. I'm like, why don't you remember more details about this book? You were so much smarter when you were younger. And I'm like, no, actually, you just read that book 40 times, Sarah. Like, of course you're going to remember the details. So, but I would like to reread more. I really want to read, and actually you're the person who sent me this book. I would love to read the paper edition of Sword of Kaigen. I read that once, and I would love to reread that book. And that edition.
Yeah, I want to reread it too in that new edition. Also, did you see Indigo has an edition of it?
Yeah, soft cover. It's a really pretty soft cover too.
I have it right here. I bought it just because I was like, I wanted to support that she got like a traditional release, and I just also thought it looked pretty cool.
It does look cool. I like the cover. It's nice.
Yeah, and then that way I can also like give this out to people to read and not be like stressed about it because I'm like, oh, I have 3 copies of this book, so like, that's always nice. Sometimes I just like see a book I like at a used store and I just pick it up because I'm like, this way I can let people use it.
Read it.
I have a coworker today that I'm bringing. She only reads first person books, which I think I've talked about this before. I thought was wild, and she was reading a book, and I think she's realized for the first time that I have good recommendations. So she was like, I think I should DNF this book because I'm noticing plot holes, and she was like walking me through it. I'm like, yeah, you should like read something else. She's like, well, I don't know what to read. And I was talking to her about stuff. I'm like, well, you've read The Hunger Games, right? And she's like, no, I've never read The Hunger Games. I'm like, what, really? And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, have you watched the movies? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay, I'm bringing you The Hunger Games. So today I'm bringing her the first Hunger Games because
take it.
I don't know how you could not read The Hunger Games if you liked like YA first person perspective books.
Right. The Hunger Games is having a resurgence too. I feel like a lot of young people are now reading The Hunger Games and watching the movies for the first time. I don't know why, but I just see that happening.
Sarah is in Newfoundland. She's just on an island somewhere that nobody goes to.
Out in the middle, which until a couple months ago, Kyle thought was New Brunswick. He believed that the space in Canada that New Brunswick occupies is what Newfoundland was. So
No, I thought it was both. I just thought Newfoundland was a bigger part of that time. Like I just, I don't care about the East.
Like I'm not gonna judge people who are not from Canada for not knowing the geography of our country, but you are Canadian. Like I know you're half and half, but you're still Canadian.
You know what? I can tell you exactly what Alberta and Vancouver like. People really go to or care about like Newfoundland? No, like you guys are a butt of a joke. So
Simba. I am not in St. John's. I am in Gander, where Come From Away takes place.
I met Laura's mom recently at my workplace. Yeah, so Laura's family is from the town that I'm from, and her mom was here visiting, and I just was like, "Oh, she should come by my work," and she did. So I met Laura's mom.
Nice, awesome.
Kind of weird that I have met her mom, but not her. But one day, Laura, come to Worldcon next year. We'll get Sarah to come too.
I think everybody should come to Newfoundland, and we should go to Lanson Meadows and see the Viking settlement. We can read fantasy books and go to the brewery they have up there, and then everybody has to come to me. So
where's this?
This is right at the northern tip of Newfoundland. There is one of the earliest Viking settlements in North America, and they have it all repurposed. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so you can go there, and they do like reenactments. You can dress up, you go and like tour around, but then they also have a brewery there. What's it called? I feel like it might be called Red Rock Brewery or something. I don't know. Maybe it's called Ragna Rock, but like rock is in ROCK because Newfoundland is called the Rock. And I have tried their stuff and it tastes good. I just think it would be a fun booktube trip. And also, like I said, I only have to drive there. So it's 10 out of 10 idea.
So you live on a rock with 9 people on it, and you want us to come triple the population of the entire place.
Exactly.
Instead of you getting on a plane and coming to us. Interesting. That actually does sound like a really cool place to visit. We just had a like in Gimli, Manitoba. There's like a Viking festival or like an Icelandic festival every year, and we finally went. We've been saying we would go for years. And there's like a Viking reenactment, and they do all this sorts of like Scandinavian things there, and it was really fun.
Cool.
I got to wear like I'll send you a picture of it actually because it's kind of funny. I got to wear like the helmet and like I had an axe and everything, and then the guy came over and pretended to kill me. It was fun.
Nice.
Yeah. You are planning to go to Worldcon, Laura? That's exciting.
That is
exciting. I pitched it to my wife because I didn't expect her to actually want to go, but everybody was meeting George R. R. Martin, and if there's one thing my wife knows, it's that I'm crazy about George R. R. Martin. Like I'm not sane. So I'm like, man, like I just really like, like I'm running out of chances to meet this man. And I'm like, he's old. And so I'm like, Worldcon is in Seattle. And she's like, I've always heard Seattle's nice. I'm like, well, it's next year. We could go. And she's like, all right, let's go. Like, it'll be a lot of fun. And I was like, that took no convincing.
I have friends in Seattle too. It would be fun to go out there. Maybe I will try to go. When is it? What time of year does it take place?
It's August. So it's like
August.
A little bit. It's like the beginning of August. It's like a little bit less than a year from today.
Okay. That would be cool.
Jimmy says that he's coming. And then Bookborn lives right there.
There we go.
Looks like Laura's coming. Patrick might come. I'm sure Johan will come because, that's what he does now. Well, there'll be a bunch of us. Yeah. Christopher Navo is also in the Seattle area. I feel like there's a couple people. We'll get it going. We'll make all the people on the UK side feel jealous next year because we all felt jealous this year.
That's true. That is very true. I met George R. R. Martin. I don't know if you knew that.
I did know that, and I said that I wanted to meet George R. R. Martin, and I remembered that you've met him and you don't care. You haven't even read A Dance with Dragons, and it hurt me on the inside.
I've also met Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, that's not as. I don't care as much.
It's not as impressive.
I mean, like, it's cool, but like, I will probably at some point be able to meet Brandon Sanderson just by laws of like he's not that old, and I go to a lot of like events,
bookish things.
Yeah, but I feel like we could get Joe next year at Worldcon. That seems like a thing that he could do because that's the year his book comes out. I'll have already met you this year, Pete, so you don't have to come to Worldcon. It's fine.
You don't have to come.
This is funny. I don't know. I feel like Ted is just like away from everything. Like he just releases a short story every 10 years.
Just slips it back into the ether.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's real. Has anybody ever seen him?
It's like Malazan with Mindolin. I don't believe that that's real. I don't think it's a real series.
Yeah, Mindolin. I guess he's been a fantasy reader for like his whole life, and he had never heard of Malazan until like he found the booktube space, and so he was just like, I don't even know if this is a real series, and so it just became this running joke that he doesn't think that Malazan is actually real because he'd never seen it anywhere.
It always makes me laugh though. Someone posts a picture of like 3 books and like, those are 2 cool books.
Before we did this, I opened your Goodreads because I was gonna scroll through it and look
to see if I was updated.
But you didn't update, which by the way, you should. But second of all, I saw my favorite thing.
Oh no!
Which is that you are currently reading Ages for Hawk, which is one of my favorite things to ever happen on BookTube. So for anybody uninitiated, in 2021, I think it was November of 2021, Sarah updated her currently reading status on Goodreads and on her Discord as H is for Hawk. And then she put it down for a couple of days, very innocently, we all assume. Innocently. And then a couple of people were like, hey, how are you liking H is for Hawk? And she was like, I put it down for right now, but I was really, really liking it. Like, I liked it so much, but I'm just like busy right now. And it just languished there. And then it became this whole joke where like she was never going to finish H is for Hawk. And so now, in dedication to that, we still have the H is for Hawk tab open. And it's been like 3 years. She has not read this book. And I don't think she can read it now legally. I think she has to not read it.
just for the rest of my life. I put it on so I did at the beginning of the year, a 12 books to read in 2024, and H is for Hawk is on that list. So we'll see. I don't have my Goodreads updated, but I do have all of the books written in my book journal. I'll be right back. I'll go grab it and then I'll be back.
Sure. Yes, Mindolin doesn't know that Malazan exists because of his object permanence. Yeah, I think this is the same thing, Rogue. I think he doesn't justify a tour there, but also like it's one of those moderately self-fulfilling things. I know this is like a publisher thing that people would know more than me, but it seems like if he came more often, he would sell more books, especially to something like Worldcon, but who knows? Maybe he just doesn't want to. I would love to meet Joe Abercrombie though. So yeah, Rogue's just here trying to kill all of our dreams. So other than the books I can't talk about, what am I reading right now? Oh, she's back. Okay. So Sarah's back with her reading journal, and she's going to tell us all the things she's been reading.
All right. So this is actually the book that I opened that I have read 10 pages of. It's called Four Treasures of the Sky, which is like, I think, literary fantasy. Feels kind of folklorish so far.
What is my own question? I don't know what you're talking about, Evie.
So here's my Hobbit book holder with the little Hobbit hole on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Right?
Are you a big Lord of the Rings movie fan?
Me, I love them, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's the right opinion. I just know you don't watch a lot of stuff. So
it's the correct answer. What have I read recently? So we talked about 20th Century Boys, Never Whistle at Night, and Never Die, which are the most recent fantasy books I read. I read a couple of like romance books that were released in August. I finished Demon Slayer because the newest season ended, and so I read like the rest of the manga to find out what happened. I finished The Weavers of Alamaxa, which was the series that you just of thought was fine.
No, I liked the first book a lot.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was one of those things where like I don't think I liked it enough for it to stay in my mind.
Yeah. And
then when I picked up the second book, I was like, oh, I've lost my investment. I did not get very far into the second book at all, like maybe like 3 chapters. And I was like, I'm not saying I will never go back and finish it. I just, in the moment, I was like, I actually don't care to read this, which means that it probably is just going to be me going through the motions of reading it and then being like, yeah, that was fine. So I just put it down.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like how it ended?
For The Weavers of Alamaxa?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I liked how it ended. And like, to me, it's a middle of the road fantasy series. Like it was, I thought that the setting and the characters were really interesting. And it was definitely a perspective and a place that we don't get a lot in fantasy, but it didn't really do anything like new or exciting. And I think this might be wrong, but I think I read the first one before I watched Avatar and then watched Avatar afterward. And so because it had been you who was like, okay, well, this is basically just the episode of Avatar. And then after I watched it, I was like, it really
is. Like, and that took off a whole star for me. Like, I think I gave that book like 4 stars. And I think I was like, I actually really liked this book, but I hated the scene so much that was like almost like a word for word copy of that episode of Avatar. That I was just like, I have to dock it because it's too similar. It's actually somebody like in editing should have been like, I know you like Avatar, but we should change this scene. Like I think her editor has not watched Avatar. That is the only thing that I can think of.
And I think, to be honest, like one of the side characters was the most interesting character. And so we had these 2 POV characters who were great, but I just found the side character more compelling. So I was like, why isn't this a third POV or one of the POVs? So that part let me down a little bit. For the ending, I'll just ask Aslan. So do you mean, so I don't want to like spoil anything. Do you mean the ending or then like the ending? So like there's Demon Slayer ends, but then there's like here's the next ending that comes secondary. Because I feel like those might be 2 different answers. My answer is that I like them both. So I like the ending, and I liked the like other thing that the author did afterwards too. But I did really like it. The ending of the most recent season of the anime got me super hyped. And so then when I was reading the ending, I was just like an emotional mess. I was just like crying, I was laughing, I was like reading so fast, and then it all happened, and there were many emotions. But I really like Demon Slayer. That one thing that I don't like, and this is why I would never, not that I'm saying that this is something that I even could do, but were I in the position that like Murphy or some of the other bigger booktubers are in, where they pivoted over to manga and that became like the main focus of their channel, I could never do that, because I feel like people are very passionate about anime and manga, and it's in a very different way, I think, than people are passionate about fantasy books. And I like things that I think a lot of people believe are mid, which is my least favorite word in the entire like English language. But I think a lot of people. I know, because you say it, and I'm like, I'm gonna be like Kyle. But I really like Demon Slayer. I don't care if people think that it's lame.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's value in that. Just, you know, liking. I'm sure there's lots of stuff that I like. Like I always use this example because I think it's so good. I love the Fast and the Furious movies. I know they're popular, but they're not good. Like, but I like, man, like just seeing like someone take a safe through a bridge. That's like I'm just there for it. So like
I am there.
All of the criticisms aside for anything, you know, if you like it, who cares? But I do think the manga enthusiasts are a different breed. The stuff that people have said about or to Alan or in the comments of people's videos with Alan discussing One Piece are ludicrous and insane, and even like worse than I've seen any other person get for like book related content.
Right?
Besides,
like sometimes it's really borderline harassment. Like this is not what I want to bring into my life at all. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Actually, so I did a video on Bookborn's channel about A Song of Ice and Fire, where me and Kyle from Lore of the Worlds did a we pitched her on crazy A Song of Ice and Fire theories, and we were being silly. Kyle wore a tinfoil hat. We were specifically like being insane. And most people, like I understand, like the majority of people who watched that video, like were in on the joke, and like most of the comments were like people that were like, "Oh, this was fun, like silly or whatever," or they said their favorite theory. Yeah. But there was like a subset of people, because I've never been exposed to how many. I think like 30 or 40,000 people watched the video, which is way more than I've ever had any. So like, just a small subsection of that people is still a lot of people that were like, these guys aren't even like knowledgeable. They missed all these like different things, or they would be like, Kyle, like we were all laughing and stuff, and I was making fun of Bookborn's pronunciation of like the way she says things, because that's like a running joke between the two of us, and people were calling me a pronunciation Nazi, and I'm like, do you not understand that like this is my friend, that this like, is gentle ribbing, just bantering, like yes, it was really weird. And then so the reason I'm bringing it up is, we said that she shouldn't watch the show because she had already decided to not watch the show. And I was like, yeah, you wouldn't like it. And someone made a Reddit thread about it. Someone made a Reddit thread calling me and the other Kyle haters. And they're like, they posted the video and they were like, new reader infected by haters.
Infected.
And it was all about how we were infecting her against the show and convincing her not to watch it. I'm like, this is unhinged. I'm like,
Kyle the virus.
I am a virus. So yeah, I posted the thread, and Pete read it because it was very funny.
That's wild. I feel like also, and part of this is just when you attain a certain level of viewership, like you said, but Bookboard in particular seems to get a lot of really off the wall comments, and she is a stronger soul than I, because I just don't think I would be able to handle it.
I think it's because she pulls so many different types of viewer together, and then also she got popular. So yeah, like she gets more views. But just like she has the Wheel of Time show watchers, she has like the Sanderson fans. Now she has the A Song of Ice and Fire fans, known for being sane, I might add. And then so she gets all of these different and then she has people who just like want to watch video essays, and she's also a woman on the internet.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think all of those factors, because her comments are just insane.
Some of them really are. What else did I read this year that we haven't talked about, Kyle? I finished Regante, which I really liked. Have you read any David Gemmell?
Yes, we read the Lord of the Silver Bow stuff together.
Did you? Did you read that with us?
Yeah. How dare
Okay.
you? I'm on Team
sorry.
Alan now. We're enemies.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I read those 3, loved them.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think we only read the first one together, and then I read the
Okay.
second 2, like, because you guys read them right away, and I didn't. But I love that whole trilogy. And then I read Legend, and Legend is the shit. I love Legend.
Yeah. Legend. If you like Legend, I feel like you would like Regante, because David Gemmell is one of those authors that if I was ever going to recommend to people, it would come with some, I don't know, some caveats. Like, you need to accept that he's writing sword and sorcery fantasy, or like heroic fantasy, or whatever you want to call it, from the 80s. And there are going to be specific tropes that get reused all the time that you might not like. And also there's going to be insta-love, because apparently in the 80s, no fantasy author could imagine a relationship building. It just, you see someone across the field with their long auburn hair and you love them for the rest of your life. Like, that is just what's going to happen. And you have to accept that that's going to happen. But if you don't mind those couple of things, I think what he does do well is done so well. He, like, his fight scenes are excellent. His characters have a lot of heart. You really get behind it. You're cheering for them. And Brigante was like that.
In a very different way, he reminds me of Guy Gabriel Kay, which is that the things that happened in Legend, or even in like Lord of the Silver Bow, like, isn't like, I'm not like blown away by, like, if I was to just tell someone what's going on or what the scene is, but the way he writes it is so simply effective. Like, there's a lot of stuff in Legend that's like basic, like, Guy is being heroic, but I'm like, but it's written in a way that I'm like, let's go to war, Dross. Like, I'm on you, I'm with you. And then Guy Gabriel Kay is the same way in a totally different way, but like more on the emotion side, where it's like, he will just write like, yeah, sometimes people die and it's sad. And he'll only say that slightly differently than how I just said it. But I'll be like, yeah, you're right, Guy. Sometimes when people die, it is sad.
So true.
And I'm just like, how did you put it so beautifully? You made
Guy Gabriel Kay is the only person I would accept, because I know this was a running thing. And I think this might have been one of Alan's early booktube videos, is about not comparing people to, or not comparing things to Game of Thrones. Not everything is the next Game of Thrones. Like, nobody, not everyone needs that in their blurb. But I do genuinely think that if you like George R.R. Martin's writing, not necessarily Game of Thrones, but the way that he writes things and how he pulls from history and the intricacies of his characters, I think you'll like Guy Gabriel Kay, or there's a high chance, because they both write fantasy that could be historical fiction. There's just some fantasy elements that are kind of woven in there too.
Also, Martin gets slept on as a writer. Like, I mean, he people put respect on his name for like plotting and twists and all this other stuff, but the guy can write a sentence. And same with Guy. So yeah,
and he's funny. Like, you have to be a good writer to be funny. A lot of people try, and it does not land. But George R.R. Martin is funny.
He is very funny. Yeah.
Some of the best dialogue from the show comes from the books. Like, it's the same stuff.
It's funny because in Jake's Discord, there's somebody reading Song of Ice and Fire right now for the first time, and they haven't been spoiled on the show. And then there's also Vess, who is in your Discord, who has only watched the show. And so,
and is also like an agent of chaos. So.
Yeah. And so this guy will post like a quote from the book. And then Vess will be like, hey, that's exactly word for word from the show. And they can bond over that. I'm like, yeah, that's because in the early seasons, they were lifting right from it. Shut up, Tanner. We don't talk about the feast descriptions. Are you ever going to finish Elric?
I think so. I did enjoy it. Maybe, I know, Evie, you went on and read, right? So I was going to say maybe we could try to read them again together, but I think you soldiered on and read them, which is fair.
How many have you read?
We read the full first bind up. Like the
bind up? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the first.
I have two bind ups.
I do. I have the second one. So the one with the green cover.
I really liked the first one. And then the second one, it's not like I didn't like it that much. It just wasn't as good. And I think I was busy at the time, and I was like, I'll just like catch up. And then I never did. But I did like the first one a lot. I'm sure that I will continue.
Yeah.
I really want to read Fever Dream. So until recently, I thought I considered Brandon Sanderson my favorite author and George second, because I was like, well, I've read a lot of different things from Sanderson and liked them all. And George, I've only read A Song of Ice and Fire. So I don't know if I could put him over Sanderson for that reason. But then I read several other things from George R. Martin, and I'm like, oh no, this guy's the GOAT. Like, I read Ice Dragon, which is like a 20-page novella, and I cried. Or like a 20-page short story, and I cried. And I was like, all right, you got me, George. You're number one. Ice Dragon's very good, by the way. You should read it.
It's hard to pull off a good novella. I feel like you have to have writing chops to make people invested in something that short.
Yeah. And it's funny because Bookborn read it at the same time as me, and she read, so there's like an illustrated kids edition of it that came out, because it's like kind of like fairy tale-esque, and it's like, 20 or 30 pages, so like a kid could read it. But I read it in his short story collection Dream Songs, which is just how he wrote it initially.
Okay.
And there is a rape scene near the end, and it's not like it's not viscerally described, but there's just like blah 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 blah, and then this guy took this girl and had his, like, you could tell, like, that what's going on,
what's happening. And
Bookborn was talking about it, and she was like, yeah, like the ending is great, like I loved it, I cried. And I was like, I'm surprised that you didn't mention the scene that happened. And she was like, what? And I guess because they just took that, I didn't know it was a kid's version she was reading, so they just took that out of the kids version. I'm like, oh, that's smart. Yeah,
that makes sense.
But yeah, George R. R. Martin always hits. And Evie a while ago asked me what I was reading, and I pulled up the list because it's always so many things. I'm reading Dragonfly Falling. I'm rereading Rhythm of War while also reading the Wind and Truth sample chapters, which is interesting.
Samples.
I'm reading The Wise Man's Fear, which we talked about, and I'm reading Nestlings by Nat Cassidy, which is really interesting, and I don't think you should read. It's a horror book, and it's about this couple that are in an apartment building in New York, and they have a new baby, and then they notice that the new baby starts having like random bug bites, and there's a bunch of creepy things happening, and it's compared to Rosemary's Baby and Salem's Lot, but I actually think it reminds me more of The Shining.
Okay.
But it gives me Stephen King vibes, and I think it's really good. I'm going to finish it today.
Are you doing Wise Man's Fear on audio?
Ish. I'm doing immersion reading and reading it physical and doing audio, depending on
like where you are in the day.
Yeah.
I've heard the audio is good. Is it?
Yeah, I like the audio a lot. I listened to all. So the reason that I read Name of the Wind when I did is that it was before the whole controversy with Rothfuss doing the World Hoppers or
where he
World Singers.
Donated or he
fundraised
it was
the fundraiser the year before, and he had like a bunch of like you bid to get like an interview with an author or like a chat with an author, and I was like, if I get that, I had just started my channel. I was like, I could just record it and like obviously tell them that I was recording it, but then just like release it as a video. So there was like one for RF Kwong and one for somebody else and one for Patrick Rothfuss. And so I bid, but I was like, I really don't want to like interview Patrick Rothfuss without having read The Name of the Wind. But it was 3 days before the thing ended. So I just binged it on audio and then I didn't win because the last day is when everybody bid. So it ended up being like super expensive. Right. But at the time I bid, it seemed reasonable. So I just binged it on audio, and I thought it was really, really good on audio. It works well. Yeah,
I've heard that the audio is good. We were speaking of rereading earlier. I really want to do the Lord of the Rings audio.
With Andy?
But yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Is it?
I did The Hobbit and The Fellowship, and it's really good.
Nice. And you did it. Okay. Well.
He's the closest that has gotten me to like Tom Bombadil. Still don't like Tom Bombadil.
I can't believe you don't like Tom Bombadil. And you read Lord of the Rings as a kid. I can understand if someone read it as an adult and they didn't like Tom Bombadil. When I was little, I loved Tom Bombadil so much. Maybe you just weren't a silly kid. I don't know, because he was weird and funny. I'm weird and funny.
You're weird. So how old were you when you first read Lord of the Rings?
10.
Okay, I was 10.
Yeah.
And I didn't find them silly. I was just like, what are we doing here?
Maybe
I was just an old soul.
Yeah.
It's possible. But also, my actual, like, if I'm being serious as a guess, would be that I watched the movies a bunch first before I read the books.
You're young. So I forget that you're a youth. The movies were not out when I read the books.
How much older than you or me?
How old
I thought you were like 2 years old. I'm 31.
I'll be 36 in December.
Oh, okay. So that does track. So you would have read it before. Okay. So you went to the movies having already read the books. That's exciting.
Yeah.
10-year-old Kyle was a grump. That's not any different than I am now, honestly. But I think I don't remember reading Tom Bombadil the first time. I just remember not liking it, but I think it was most likely just I'm like, oh, this wasn't in the movies. Why are we wasting time on this?
Yeah, that's
And then
fair.
every other reread, I'm just like, these songs are stupid. I also skipped all the songs.
Did
So
you?
yeah,
See,
I'm not a song reader.
I also have big memories. So like my dad is also very goofy and he loves Lord of the Rings. And so he read The Hobbit to me, but I read the Lord of the Rings by myself. But he would read the stuff that I was reading at the same time. And so he would like sing a lot of the parts of Lord of the Rings. He used to sing the like Tom Bombadil songs. He'd be like going around the house like singing
Okay,
like
so
Tom
that's
Bombadil.
very
So
endearing.
yeah,
So
right?
I would like it too if my dad did that.
Yeah.
I actually am very excited to read The Hobbit to my eventual kids.
Yes.
That and Harry Potter. I'm very excited.
We did The Hobbit when I think Juliet was 5 and Isaac was 4. We read it. And that year there was this there's an Etsy shop that makes handmade ornaments. And so we ordered a Hobbit one and the kids like put it on the tree the same year that we read the book. And it was so nice. I really liked it. My kids also loved the songs, but the Hobbit songs are fun, right? Because you have That's What Bilbo Baggins Hates and you have the spider songs. And so like they love it. My kids used to run
You're
around the
saying
house
all
like
this,
singing.
like I know what you're
yeah.
talking about.
Yes, yeah. So they used to sing those songs all the time too.
I think it's because I'm not very musical. So when I read a song, I can't think of a melody. Like I like it's really like it's just like it's distressful to me in a way that I'm just like it takes me out of the narrative because I'm trying to like be like how is this a song? So it's much better when like if I'm doing audio, they can at least sing it to me. But Tom Bombadil's stupid regardless, it doesn't matter. And then I've heard that Song for Our Bone has a lot of good songs that are sung really well by the narrator. So I'm excited to see if that will make me like the songs. Because I also don't like poetry in books, but at least it's poetry. If I read it, I'm not trying to put a melody to it. I'm just trying to read what the words mean.
Trying to read it.
And so that's yeah, see,
I can't believe I've never told you my Lord of the Rings movie experience, Kyle. So first of all, my dad and I being in the middle of nowhere. So Trout River, where I grew up, is literally the middle of nowhere. It's on the side of the ocean. There's 500 people there. It takes 2 hours to drive to a grocery store. No cell phone service. It snows in the winter so that you can't leave. Like there's not a snowplow big enough to dig you out. So you're just stuck there for like weeks at a time. So it literally the middle of nowhere. So we had no idea that the Lord of the Rings movies were coming out. And one day we went to the theater, and when we were in the movie theater, a preview played, and it was just a black screen with the drums from Moria sounding in the movie theater. And we both just kind of looked at each other and we're like, oh my God. And so that's how we found out that the Lord of the Rings movies were even coming out. And then my dad and I went to see them all together on opening night. And it was just the two of us, because this was pre-booking seats or anything in the theater. So we would show up. So we showed up like hours and hours ahead of time. And it was us two. And this man who could have been 30, could have been 70, looked like a vampire, had a ponytail, like looked like Harry Dresden, actually, like a long duster. He wore a hat and he just didn't talk. He was silent. He sat like on the step. And then you have me and my dad, who are like two of the chattiest people to have ever lived. So I'm sure he hated his life every single time there was a Lord of the Rings preview or a Lord of the Rings movie coming out. So it would just be the three of us waiting, and we would all get in there and sit like in the very back row of the movie theater and watch these movies. And so by the time we got to the end of them, I felt like we were friends. I don't think he wanted to be our friend, but I was like, the three of us were in this together. Dresden doesn't wear a hat. That's true, Jake. Sorry.
I think that probably was Harry Dresden because he is canonically a Lord of the Rings fan, and he probably wants to stay away from technology. So he was hiding out in Trout River.
That's very
and
fair.
he used to wear a hat when he was incognito. So
that's true.
I have not seen the War of the Rohirrim trailer yet, but I saw that it came out and was going to watch it. And then I think I just worked that day and forgot about it.
I saw the trailer.
Does it look good?
I think it looks good. I'm excited, but I'm also kind of scared because I don't even know if I made it through an entire episode of The Rings of Power. And I was like, this is.
Well, different people are making it. And Rings of Power is not good. I don't think it's good. Lord of the Rings, I have a funny story about seeing it in theaters too, which is that. So actually, I think I've told this story on here before, which is that my grandma's really religious and she didn't want me to like watch her read anything that was, the devil and whatever. So my mom really fought this. And it's funny because my mom is not like a big fantasy fan. Like she is, but it's not like us where like we really love it. She just like watched it and she's like, oh, this is cool. But she made me watch The Fellowship of the Ring. And I was like, and then the ring race came and I was like, oh no, they're evil. I'm going to go to hell for watching this.
Oh no.
And my mom was like, if you don't watch this whole movie with me, you're grounded.
You're grounded.
And so I watched the movie with her. And of course I loved it like immediately. And then I was like, oh no, well, is there a second one? And she's like, oh, the second one's not out yet. So then we went opening day to the second one, and I watched the second one in theaters, and I loved it. And then for the third one, we wanted to go. I was 11 for the third one, so I must have been 10 and 9 for the other two. And we were going to go the first day, and we went late, and we couldn't get tickets for the first day, and I threw a huge hissy fit.
No.
Like the biggest, most ridiculous hissy fit. I was like, I want to see it on the first day. Just 11-year-old Kyle going mental. And she was like, well, like, I'm like, let's go to a different theater. There's other theaters. Like, I was just throwing a fit. She's like, we can go on the second day. That's going to be okay. And I was like, the first day.
Oh no.
So,
you know, if you're going to be passionate about something, Lord of the Rings is a good choice.
So I guess I was always just a huge nerd.
There you go. The only time that ever happened to me is we did not have another option because obviously Trout River, so the closest like city, which is a town of 20,000 people, is Corner Brook, and it has a movie theater. And so that's where we used to have to go to watch movies. And so we went to see the Pokemon movie. Like, do you remember the original Pokemon Mewtwo? Like Mewtwo Fights Back or Strikes Back, whatever it is. So we went to see it in theaters, and it was me. And I guess I was around like 10, 11 when that movie came out. I don't remember what year it came out. If it was before probably, 2000.
I think I was 6. So you were probably, it might have been 5. So you probably 10 or 11.
It must have been because Pokemon 2000 came out after that in 2000. So it must have been like the late 90s. And it was me and my 2 younger sisters who would be around your age, like your age and a year younger. And the movie was sold out. And so the only option was for us to stay for the nighttime showing. So we're like 2.5 hours away from home. My parents are trying to drive us around Corner Brook and like find something to do to occupy us until the Pokemon movie comes out. And it was, what an experience. Then we all went and we cried because
I vividly remember my mom falling asleep watching that movie in theaters. I was just livid. And then, so for the second movie, I went with friends, but my mom still came because I would have been like 7 or something when the second movie came out. And so we didn't sit with my mom. She was sitting in the front row or like near the front. And I remember seeing her head plop down. And I was like, she fell asleep again.
There's some popcorn up there. Do you still have your little Mew collector card that they gave you at the beginning of that movie?
I don't. We lived in a trailer at the time. And that trailer got left in the States when we moved here. So I actually, like, my dad came up later than we did to Canada. And I was like, bring all of my stuff, but he didn't because like he has other things to worry about than like, you know, all my random Pokemon crap. But he did bring my Yu-Gi-Oh cards because at the time I was really into Yu-Gi-Oh. So he's like, well, I'll bring the Yu-Gi-Oh cards at least.
That's fair.
And then like 2 years later, I was too cool for Yu-Gi-Oh, so I just gave them to like a not cool person I knew because I was like, oh, you still like this baby stuff. You can have these. And now I'm like, why did I do that? Like, I wish I still had them.
I wish I had them. Oh, no.
Yeah. It's actually sad. We don't have any of, like, our photos from when I was a kid or anything like that. So
that is sad. And it's not like now. Like, I don't have any videos or stuff from when I was little. Everybody has it now on your phone. But back then, if you didn't keep it, then that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I sometimes wonder what happened to that trailer. Because, like, what happened was my mom brought me up here, me and my sister up here for the summer, and she just like was like, what if you went to school in Canada? And I remember being like, absolutely not. I am not going to become a Canadian. This is absurd. I am not going to hang out with moose, and I'm not going to live in an igloo. I'm absolutely against this. And then she just was like, well, I'm your mother and I'm doing what I think anyway. And then so once they decided to do that, my dad came up, but he couldn't bring the whole trailer. He just like drove up. So then we just left the trailer there in the lot of a friend's house, and then that guy got evicted from his house. So he just lost everything. We just never know what happened to that trailer. So I'm like, man, where did all of our stuff go?
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
Odd to think about. And like that can't be a unique situation. There's got to be lots of times.
Yeah, one day I'll just come across like a random stock photo in like a Walmart, and I'll be like, that was me as a kid. They stole my property. I had a thought again. I don't know. I haven't had enough coffee today. I feel like I'm just scatterbrained. Okay, how about this? So while we're wrapping up, what are some things that you would like to finish by the end of the year besides Dragonfly Falling.
Besides Dragonfly, I will actually take out my 12 books of 2024 list now to tell you what I'm planning to read. So other than Dragonfly Falling, I want to read what's on my desk. I'm trying to think of the things so I do want to read the Lev Grossman book. I don't remember what it's called now. The Brightest Sword or something, maybe, whatever his Arthurian book that just came out is.
I can think of the cover. I think it's called The Brightest Sword.
I think so, something like that. It's a blue cover. So I do want to read that. I want to finish up 20th Century Boys and start Berserk, which we already talked about. And the other books that I have slated to finish in 2024, we'll see if that actually happens, are A Woman of the Sword. So I'm hoping to read that. And that's pretty short. So I feel like
that's
I could definitely
Anna
get
Smith
that.
Sparks, right?
It is. And I haven't read anything by her. So that'll be exciting. I want to read Lancelot, which is another Arthurian book. I want to read The Night Watchman, which is more like literary fiction. The Mask of Mirrors I have on the list to try because I was hoping to start that series last year. And from what I've seen people read, they seem to really like it. So I think I'll like it too.
I've wanted to read that series since it came out and I have not started it.
You haven't started?
I think
Blood Over
really
Brighthaven,
cool.
I want to read.
Oh, I think you really like Blood Over Brighthaven.
I think so too. People seem to really like that one too. And H is for Hawk.
Why would you taunt us like this? You know you're not watching that. And there's a big book missing from that called Ship of Destiny.
So I do need to finish Ship of Destiny. Yes, you were giving me the opportunity to say that, and I missed that. I did not take it, but I do want to.
Is Night Watchman by Louise somebody?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have that book.
Yeah.
So tell me if it's good, and maybe I'll read it.
I will.
You're really into like the King Arthur retellings, huh? Like
I love them. I've read so many. I love them.
Okay, so explain this to me, like, because it's not like I don't like them, but I just like it's like the retelling of the same thing. Like, do you just find it interesting, the different ways people interpret it, or like, is it just a story you love so much that you love seeing it done?
I genuinely think it's that when so you know how like stereotypically there's like horse girls. So there's girls who like start reading horse books at a certain time in their youth,
Eevees,
and then like Evie. But I think it is a widespread phenomenon.
It is for sure, yeah.
That was my horse book, I think. Like I started reading Arthurian retellings at that age where you're super impressionable, and then it just stuck. And so I've read some that are great. I've read some that are like terrible, and then lots that are in between. But I still love reading them. And there's so many, like you could never read them all. I would, and this has been a goal since I started BookTube, is to make a video that is a good summary of, if you're looking for a traditional retelling, if you're looking for a gender bent retelling, if you're looking for a YA retelling, if you're looking for one that's more historical fiction, one that's more, I think I could make a really good video like that, but I need to bring it into perspective. You have to finish the Wheel of Time before you make that video. Oh, gross. I can't do it. I couldn't even make it out of the first chapter. That's not true. I made it 100 pages in. My favorite Arthurian retelling, I have two. So the ones by Mary Stewart are my favorites from childhood. So that's like the Crystal Cave, the Hollow Hills, that series, which follows, good Lord, I'm having a complete brain moment. Does it follow Arthur? No, Merlin. It doesn't follow Arthur. I think Lancelot. Galahad. No. Anyway, it's good. It's totally going out of my mind. But anyway, it is like a skewed perspective. Like Arthur is a side character, but then also the Winter King books are. Yeah, those are my favorite. Yeah, I like them a lot more than Lancelot, which I think. I mean, you can actually, like I was kidding earlier. You can actually kind of count Wheel of Time as a King Arthur thing. Like it is for sure an intentional, but for real ones I think of the only ones I've read are Lancelot and the Warlord Chronicles, and I really like the Warlord Chronicles. Warlord is excellent. Oh, I've also read Spear. Spear was okay. I really like Spear. Spear is fun. Spear was good. Like I don't really think about it ever. It was a little too esoteric, but I liked the experience of reading it. And I do count that Evie, even if it's like from side characters. No, so not an official DNF. I just think that I'm probably going to push it off until next year, and then probably even reread book one and just make it the year that I try to read at least like 6 of them. Like keep going steadily and read like I don't think you need to reread every 1 to 2 months. You don't think so? Like there's not details that I'm going to need to know? Like I think at a certain point you might want to reread book one anyway, like just because
like if you really like the series, like a lot of people will reread book 1 and really like find all the foreshadowing. So since you're going to do that anyway, I don't think like book 2 has one plot line that carries on. And I feel like either you'll remember it or you'll remember basic stuff. But also like you have Colton and Jake and Igor and all these people that like are just Malazan simps that just they'll tell you anything you need to know. And then the third book is more like directly connected to the first book. But I think if you read Deadhouse Gates and you feel fine, that'll give you an idea of whether or not you need to reread. I think you'll be fine. Back.
Probably. And I can always read a summary, I guess. Like there are people have done some comprehensive summaries for these books. So I think I don't want to keep doing it like this and just be like, okay, once every 14 months, I'm going to read one of them. I would like to finish up the other stuff that I have left open and then dedicate a good chunk of my time to going through.
Yeah. Malazan takes a lot out of you. And I've been trying to start Midnight Tides forever. And I just, there's always something coming up. And that's the one that, so Bookborn and I buddy read the first 3 together. And she gave them all 4 stars. So it's not like she didn't like them, but it was a lot for her. And the 4th book is where a lot of people thought she might DNF. So I read the 4th book and I told her, I was like, I don't really think you will like this book. I think there's a lot of stuff that you're going to find objectionable. And the rest of the story doesn't strike me as stuff that you've really liked in the other parts of the series. So I think you'll like slog through the stuff you don't like and then give the rest of the book like a 3-star. But the 5th book is a standalone. Like it's a prequel that doesn't follow any of the storylines from the first 4. And she's like, if you really like the 5th book, and think that I will like it, I will read the 5th book and see if I really like the 5th book, then I'll go back and read the 4th and like continue on. So I want to read the 5th book so that I know if I'm reading the rest of the series with her or if I'm going to just be reading the whole series, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
It hasn't happened. I did not watch the Merlin TV show. I have seen a couple of episodes.
I did not watch it either. I have avoided most King Arthur things.
The antithesis, Sarah.
Yeah, anti-Sarah. Midnight Tides is awesome, Tom. I really like the ending of that book, besides, the meme of compassion.
This was a running joke. I told Igor that I was going to review every Malazan book when I read them and not say the word compassion one time, like intentionally say other words that were not compassion just to see how long I could do it before somebody noticed. But
I mean,
we'll see.
The third book is about compassion, and it really is on the nose. Like characters are just like, they might as well just be like, hey, if we were in a story, what would the story be about? And then somebody else would be like, it would be about compassion. Like, I'm like, bro, I get it, Steven. Like, I get it, Stevie. But it's still very good. Yeah, see, a lot of people really like Midnight Tides. 3.5 months. That's such a long time on a book. But I get it. Memory's Vice is huge and it's dense. It huge. But man, that would suck. Did you read other stuff at the same time, Tom? Or have you just been not reading much? Or because that feels like such a long time. See, it is about compassion. And it's only the 3rd book so far that's about compassion. But anyway, I got to get going. This has been a pleasure. And I'm glad to get to bully you in person for once instead of bullying you online. And come back to BookTube. We all miss you. We're all missing the TBRs with Pirate. Yeah. And thanks for joining us, everybody. The chat was very lively today. Everybody misses you. This is the most amount of chat I feel like I've had in a long time. Everybody's just like, can't wait to talk to Sarah.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.